Hey, what's up, people? Welcome. Time to get this started. About to have a good show today, but we got to say something first. Please understand something. Before we get into this, please understand that the views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the respective hosts and or the persons appearing on the program, and they do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Freeman Collective channel. So let's get this pushing. What's up, people? It's your host, Darvell, for the Freeman Collective, the Freedmen's Collective, for March 26, 2022. So we're going to be having a really powerful discussion today. We're going to have a really hybrid discussion. We're going to bring in the Clubhouse gang for this one. We're going to get into it. We got to talk about something. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kamala Harris. What do they have in common? And what does it mean for Black political ascension in America? Two powerful women, well regarded by the Black community in some regards, and maybe in some other ways, people might have questions, and we're going to answer those questions today. So I'm going to have my co-hosts with me. They're going to be on Clubhouse. You know, Stedman, Ernest, and Gerard are going to be pulling up. And so we're going to get into that. Please understand the call-in line will be open. Although we're on Clubhouse, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the call-in line is going to be open, so you'll get the number for that here shortly. So I look forward to a robust conversation with all of you present and supporting us in this, and let's get into it. All right, let's see what they talking about today.
And we continue to look for these politicians to better our lives when that power lies within ourselves, not the politicians. So we at this point we just don't get it. We don't. We have been bought and sold on the narrative of entitlement, and the government needs to take care of us. I mean, yeah, do they owe us reparations? Fuck yes. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. They owe us 100%. But we owe ourselves even more. You know, I mean, it's just the money is already there. It's already there. We don't have to wait for them to give us anything. I mean, right now, do you understand that there are millions and millions of people turning 65 years old every day who want to retire and sell their businesses? Acquisitions is red hot right now. You don't even have to have good credit, or you don't even have to have any of your own money to purchase a business. Like you, I mean, literally, you got 17-year-olds riding around in private jets. So what's our excuse?
Hey, let's sorry to interrupt you, Ernest. We're gonna need to reset the room, yo. We're on.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. I just did a reset. I know we got Omar in the room, but for the folks who just popped in, and even for the folks that's online, that's on the YouTube channel, we're talking about Ketanji and Kamala, Black Girl Magic and Black Girl Tragic. We definitely wanted to talk about some of the things that we've seen that are worthy highlights, like the fact that there are so-called Black people in positions of power who have this weird intersection with whiteness that we feel skews their views on race and skews their ability to actually progress the Black race as it relates to what needs to be done to correct some of the history of this country. We also wanted to point out some contradictions where you got the Fraternal Order of Police, you know, in full support and endorsement of Ketanji Jackson. And then at the same time, you have Black Lives Matter in full support of her. And so I believe from Black Lives Matter viewpoint, it's this weird political, preschooler preschooler level, where because Ketanji is a Black woman, they feel that that in itself is an advancement for the Black race. That if she is elected, that would somehow progress us, and I guess even maybe their cause as it relates to police justice and reform. But when we look at the Fraternal Order Police, they believe that their views are going to be looked after. They believe that Ketanji understands, coming from a law enforcement background, that officers are placed in unstable situations and need to be relieved or need to have special protections to deal with the dangers and people who are non-compliant.
As if they don't already have enough protection.
Totally ignoring the fact that there are, Black people who are killed, and I would say a high number at this point, what we've seen in the media, who are not violent, who are not, attacking these police. Instead, we see the opposite. And so for them to give a full-hearted endorsement of Ketanji Jackson after just fighting her when she was underneath the Barack Obama administration on certain issues, I believe it's problematic. I believe, that they may now see eye to eye and that they have a different expectation. But go ahead, Darvell.
What I was going to say is, like, let's just deal with the basics real quick, just for the, the people who aren't really ready to stack the cookies as high as they really need to go. Do we have any merits to a woman that is, just like we talk about with Kamala? She's Black, okay? Although we're going to get into the nuance of what that really means and the value of that, she's Black. Do we have any value in her as a Black woman making it to this position? Is she a trailblazer for any value of any sort, anything? Like, just the fact that you see a Black person there, a Black woman, does that make it easier for Black women to come along later, even if, this person's I want to say a sellout, but now the next person would be truly, down with the Freeman agenda? Does this do anything for us to have at least Ketanji in place?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's a part of their agenda. It's a part of their plan. I mean, they have what you call full spectrum dominance. They always play both sides. So even when they elect or select a person of our skin tone into a prominent political position, that doesn't mean shit for us as a whole.
Well, how about not the identity politics of it, but the imagery? Like, I just seen a picture on social media that's circulating of little boys and girls coloring Ketanji Brown Jackson. They're coloring her, and they're learning that Black women can be in the Supreme Court. Does that do anything for the kids or anybody? Just that fact. Not, again, the politics, and I'm not caping for it, but I'm just trying to make sure we cover the bases, because all those little bases are what people hang their hats, even though it's very simplistic and it doesn't speak to the root cause of why we're even doing the coloring book in 2022. I'm just wondering, does that, I mean, it's something, but it's nothing, right?
I think it does. I think it does. I think it does.
Hold on, Arthur. Okay. We're gonna let Omar get in there because he is new on stage, and then he has been waiting. But you can get in right after him, though.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate this. Is a great conversation. It's a lot of nuance to it, and I think from a practical standpoint, I think it does matter. Representation does matter. If you think about it, like 4 years from now, right, or a couple years from now, when, let's say, Kamala's out of office, right, nobody's really gonna remember who the vice president was or what they stood for, right? Ketanji Jackson, man, she's gonna be in on that seat for probably a lifetime. Probably until some of us die. She's gonna still be a Supreme Court justice. So her impact is going to be for a generation or so. So this is a big deal in the sense that if you look at her track record, like her actual track record on, let's say, prison sentence guidelines, right? Her firm and what she was a part of, she was very responsible for getting reduced sentences, right? And these largely affect Black Americans, Black people here in America, right? So I think, from a practical standpoint, representation does matter. Do we have to agree with her on every single thing? No. But it does matter. And I think that this is a great move. I would rather have her in that seat than anyone else that was, nominated or potential. So I think it does matter for Black girls and Black people. I think this is a big deal, and I think we're going to reap the benefits from this for a generation. Vice presidency really has no power in this country. Let's be honest. But I think Ketanji is Black girl magic. I will land there. Thanks.
So sorry to just jump in. So how does that work out for Clarence Thomas, though? I mean, we look at he's been the Supreme Court since '89 or something like that, 80 something. How has that translated to meaningful policy for Black people, for Black progress, for Black boys to dream to be on the Supreme Court, or to dream to have positions in law or law enforcement? I mean, what we have to understand is that, in my opinion, there's practically no benefit for any of the representation matters talk, because what it does is obscures the reality of our situation. Representation matters when you have substantive policy or opportunity to allow for that representation to be actionable. Otherwise, you're just really showing people a mirage or a unicorn or a fairy or something that they can never achieve as a way to pacify them from having any actual, in my opinion, any actual disdain for the people in charge or the people in power, right? And then when you look at, I don't know much about her sentencing or whatever, but when you look at her, all I know what her sentencing reduction is for, that I've heard, again, I haven't looked her up very much, because for me, because I know that it's just going to be nothing. Black people don't get put in these positions if they're going to make positive change for Black people. That's just, we got to understand that. All I know that she had any kind of sentence reduction for was for like child sex crimes or something like that, which I guess they're saying is, is normal within the federal judicial system. So it's not even something that's just a problem for her, but it's something that affects, whites who I think disproportionately commit child sex crimes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's all we got to look at is we can hope for prison reform because we got a Black female on the Supreme Court, when the majority is still going to be 6'3" conservative, when we've had a Black man on the Supreme Court since the 70s or late 60s. I can't remember when. Now I'm drawing a blank. Thurgood Marshall got put on the court. I can't remember. But, we had a Black president, right? And so this is the thing to kind of bring Kamala into this. We had a Black president who didn't do nothing for Black people for 8 years and never tried in a real way. And so I always had this confusion because, using like 70s slang and old historical Black slang, the man was Black. The man was a Black man and nothing changed. So how are you going to have the vice man or the second man in charge, just using that as a colloquial term, nothing to do with gender or anything, and expect better results? The guy in charge, who we are all expected to believe the leader of the free world pulling the strings, was Black. And materially, Black life got worse. Black homeownership, Black employment, Black wealth got worse. How do we expect the Black vice president when, except for, in those cases of like Dick Cheney, Black vice presidents are all figureheads, right? Dan Quayle never even got into politics after he left from George H.W. Bush. And George W. became president, but he had a long track record in Washington, CIA director. His grandfather or something was a senator. So he's a moneyed individual. He went to Yale, so there's a lot more to it than that. But when we look at vice presidents don't even typically get elected to president. Okay. So if we want to just accept that this is a win for Black girls because there's a Black woman there, and we want to divorce that from any real knowledge of her politics or political actions or behaviors, then Clarence Thomas is a win for Black men. So is Tim Scott, the Republican senator from South Carolina.
Great point.
The former sheriff of, I can't remember what county in Wisconsin. So is Larry Elder. He got his law degree from University of Michigan, his bachelor's degree from Brown. He's had a long running radio show. I mean, so is Condoleezza Rice. And so, we if we want to try to actually make changes and try to improve the condition of our people, we have to look at everybody the same. Are you doing something for us, or are you using us to try to push an agenda, whether we like it or not? is this pacification? Because that's what they told us. Oh, the vice president got to be a black woman. To what end? Now, first, it was Kamala. So, yes, she's black, but she's not a freedman, a descendant of freedmen. She doesn't have any of our historical ancestry or historical trauma or historical culture, right? Her mother was an Indian from a high caste. Her father was a Jamaican man from a high caste, right? So we understand that she doesn't even have that going for her as it pertains to our everyday life, if we want to talk about prison reform as it benefits black people. So how do we sit here and try to justify all these ways in which Ketanji, Kamala, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, any of these black women who get put up into these positions to continue to carry the water, to carry the torch, to carry the baton of whiteness, of white supremacy, of the system of white supremacy, as anything more than window dressing, you know? So,
yeah, and I think everything you said was spot on, Stedman. Omar, you had anything you wanted to say or add in on that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna play a clip right after you go.
Okay.
But what I'm gonna play is from the trenches, so I'm gonna play that right after.
Okay, yeah, I think this is a great topic. I enjoy this conversation. Great topic. I think we just have to be careful when we try to lump Ketanji in with Kamala, right? Because we'll never do that if Kamala was a man or a white vice president. We would never lump them in with the Supreme Court justice, right? Because they're their own individuals, right? And Ketanji, if you look at the United States government case versus, I believe, William Young who was a drug kingpin. I forgot what state it was, but she reduced his sentence because he had got life in jail. She was upset with the federal government of his case, and she reduced his sentence, I believe, from 25 years to 10 years, right? So she has been a big advocate of reducing nonviolent drug offenders' sentence. And I think that is a big deal in our community, particularly, in which is foundational Black Americans, or however you want to put it. But I appreciate this conversation. Thing.
You know what? I'll say this real quick. You know, that is a big.
Go ahead, Stedman.
So,
all right, go ahead.
Okay, so you know, when you're looking at, for example, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, I hold Liz Cheney to the same standard I hold her father, or the Bush daughters. I hold them to the same standard, or Bush to his father, right? Or if you look at, for example, any other presidents or historical figures that we've had that have had any kind of familial or blood relation, I hold them all to the same standard. So I don't know if we can say that if it was a male or a white or whatever, because I think Obama's trash, and I think Clinton is trash, and Bush is trash, and Trump was trash, and all up down the line, unless they got assassinated, in which case they didn't get to live long enough to see how much trash they was going to commit. They were all trash. On that second part about as far as Kamala, and I just told you Dan Quayle. I mean, I just told you Dan Quayle, H.W. Bush. I could say Mike Pence, Trump. I could say Gore. I mean, we can go down the line of vice presidents who were worthless individuals. Okay, and then second to that, as far as the sentencing restructuring, if you're telling me the guy's a kingpin, he wasn't a non-violent offender, because kingpin is different than just saying you a dealer, right? That's a big difference than just saying somebody's a dealer. And so while I agree that we should have sentencing reductions for non-violent offenders, if the guy's a kingpin, which means that he's moving high amounts of drugs into our community, guns, violence. And on our show, we've talked about how the CIA is behind a lot of this stuff, the Contras in Nicaragua bringing cocaine up through the West Coast. And we've done a lot of that, looking at how the CIA is behind all that stuff. If the guy is a drug kingpin, right, he needs to be in jail for 25 years. Those aren't the kind of people we need to be worried about. You know, Alton Sterling had 2 joints and lost his life. That's the kind of stuff we need to be worried about. You see what I'm saying? The fact that you can get 5 times more time in prison at the federal level due to sentencing for cocaine, crack cocaine versus powder, that's a problem that we need to get addressed in sentencing. But if a person is a kingpin, you got to go to jail, playboy, and you need to be there for as long as they tell you to. Because as much as I understand the socio-economic conditions of your life as a black man, if he's black, I'm not sure, but I imagine, then, but I didn't resort to those kind of decisions. I work and I just have to live with the life I can afford to live, right? I might not have the testicular fortitude or the gastrointestinal fortitude to be a drug kingpin. And so, I've resorted to just doing a regular 9 to 5. And I imagine a lot of us in this chat feel the same way. And so, if that's the choice he's made, I don't make the, hey, it benefits all of us, because I ain't a drug kingpin. I'm just trying my best to make it here right now. So we still need to understand through that lens, is this beneficial for us, or is this window dressing? But I'll let you go for the.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Ketanji. I like what a combo going, so I just want y'all to keep it flowing. So go ahead, Ketanji.
Yeah, I was just gonna give a little bit of pushback on the fact that you just said that the drug dealer that's a drug kingpin needs to go to prison. So what really needs to happen is the FBI and the CIA need to be raided, because the drug dealer is the end user, right? The drug dealer or the crackhead is the end dealer or the end user. But the more important question we need to ask ourselves is, why is it that the people that are allowing drugs into this country not being prosecuted? That's the bigger picture, because believe you me, it takes a hell of a cooperative effort between the federal government, you know what I'm saying, local agencies, and the CIA and the FBI to continue to allow drugs into this country, and specifically only drop them off in our communities.
You know what? That speaks to a very powerful point, though. Earlier it was said that the basic essence is that the reduced sentencing for the low drug offenses that Ketanji had been part of, that effort, that's a big deal.
But that's
well, no, hold on. Let me say this. What I'm pointing to is this. That is okay. That is similar to the idea that we have all these drugs coming in the way that at the end of the day, we shouldn't be looking to have reduced drug sentences, because we're always the ones being penalized with those sentences. We shouldn't even be at the end of that spear. We shouldn't even be at the tip of that gun, right? It's being pointed directly at us. We don't need anyone to reduce sentences. We need to not even be in the room.
Right. And then and having a lot of young black males in our communities that are drug dealers, or young black men and women who are using drugs, that is a symptom of a deeper rooted issue that we're not addressing, right? We're not addressing the joblessness in our communities. We're not addressing the lack
Exactly.
of family units in our community. We're not addressing the lack of financial literacy being taught in the
Exactly.
homes.
Exactly.
So if those things get better, the crime and the drugs, those issues will resolve themselves, because we're tackling the root issues.
Exactly. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, these two point to a root issue, and they don't actually champion resolving those root issues, because they don't even identify with the people who are really the real victims of those root issues.
And the reason why they don't is because it's going to affect their bottom line. It's going to affect their pocketbook. There's a financial incentive to keep dropping drugs off in our communities.
Guys, y'all gotta look at who these people is. They're financially, economically vested in maintaining the dynamic by which it is. Hell, they done made their careers off of selling people down the river based on a set of principles that allow for a guilty person to be set free and an innocent person to be convicted. The whole time them knowing.
Yeah, I agree. And also remember, 80% of drug use is generally by white people in America. But the thing about it's
What?
just as much drugs in the black community as in the white community. The difference is the over policing, right? So that's a whole nother issue that probably is out of Ketanji's hand at this moment, right? So we have to remember, she's there for a specific reason, and she's up there to uphold the law, right? To make sure the law is just. And like I said, it's going to affect us for a lifetime. So I think it's very important, man, that now I ain't talking about Kamala. Kamala's a whole different issue. She's out of office probably in another 2 years, right? And we probably never think of her again. But Katanja, man, she will affect our children's and our children's children for like for a while.
All right, well, Omar, would it be fair to compare like that if we were to compare Ketanji with like the likes of someone like Thurgood or potentially Clarence. You get what I'm saying?
Facts. I agree.
To the point where if she is black, like Thurgood, he made shit happen for us, and he definitely supported the controversial decisions that would advance us. Now, for Ketanji, is that the same thing, or is she another Clarence? That's what people don't know, and that's why people still challenge this idea of even if you're the first black, it don't necessarily matter. So this clip I want to play is coming straight from like, these guys these days that's involved in like that treacherous life that we talking about, where we saying that not everybody lives to be the kingpin. Most of these guys go to jail or they end up dead. But the ones that are alive, they have a view on politics to the point where they don't even engage because they don't believe in general that black people can change their situation. That even if it's the first black president, is it going to change their living condition tomorrow to the point where they can't walk outside the door and not get shot? So I'm going to go ahead and play that.
Like, that's some shit I've seen, like, on the internet where they said they posted a picture with like Barack Obama, and that shit was like the trenches after the black president get elected and the trenches before a black president get elected. Like, I never see the difference. So if it, like, I don't see the difference. What the fuck, we want to root for that shit though, cause we never had that shit, We rooting for this shit cause we never had no black president, folks. But at the end of the day, what the fuck is gonna change if these niggas get elected, folks? They all at the polls doing all this weird shit, saying, yeah, we want a black president, or we don't want Biden, y'all should have kept Trump. Like, they gonna pass out certain little 1200s and shit, but it's like, them people don't get no fuck about us either, so they doing that shit to win niggas over and get votes and shit.
Truth.
So this is coming directly from people who don't participate in politics, didn't go to school, got the felon record, all of this. They saying the same thing as those of us who have the education, who work the corporate jobs, who work the 9-to-5s, and the reality is this: if they not moving to change that situation, it don't matter how black they is or what divine nine they were a part of. You know what I'm saying? And so for Ketanji, I would agree with you, Omar. It ain't fair to judge her with the likes of a Kamala. But for Ketanji, the point to be critical is that, is she another Clarence Thomas? And you got people like Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, all of these, Cory Booker, all of these black people who trying to hype her up like, oh, look, she black. This going to be the first black thing. Don't y'all want another first black thing? And black people like, yo, is that going to change any of this shit? If she get elected with married to a white man, whole white, married to whiteness and shit, if she get elected, is that going to change the trajectory of the trenches? Is that going to change the trajectory of the black middle class? That's the reality.
I like that.
Or is it going to result in advancements for the white middle class and white individuals who feel like I'm a woman, or who feel like, hey, what I believe is more important than this racial equality idea of this fucking black group, because they've already gotten everything at this point, is how the world see it. And that's problematic.
That was good. Is this going to change the trajectory of the trenches? And I think the problem is that all of us on this call understand it, and we even have a little nuance to our positionality or our lens to that. But most people, I think, either totally are out of the system, like the gentleman who you just played the clip from, or they really do believe in this identity politics meaning something substantial. And it's like, we already know the first group, they understand it. They don't even vote. Shit, forgive my language, but some of them don't because of this. And then the other ones, they're just like, oh, this is great. But there's so many vocal ones who say it's great, because that narrative is what's pushed up to the top of the search results. That narrative is what's socially acceptable to speak about in any circle. You can't go into these same circles and say what we're saying, because then people come up with every excuse, everything in the book to say that, no, you're wrong. You're being misogynist. You're being anti-black. You're being X, Y, and Z. And so we're fighting a double war. We're fighting a basic knowledge war. Then we're fighting a psychology war, because at the end of the day, we got people running around here promoting essentially white supremacist, not only talking points, but white supremacist psychology that's been indoctrinated into us by depriving us for so long that now we believe that any trinket that comes along is a transformative element to our lives potentially. And it's just like, my gosh, they got us.
And you know, kind of saying, again, like on our show on YouTube, the Freedmen Collective, we went into detail about how the CIA, the FBI are behind the drug situation. And as I stated, and I hope it wasn't misunderstood, for low-level offenders, I believe we should have reform, right? I think that's important. I still think that kingpins, and I don't know if I'm ever going to change my mind on this, whether or not the CIA, I got a cousin who is a dealer, right? Had a real job, money. But it was his decision to sell. It was his decision to get involved in those things at that level. Now he could always, you know, kind of repent and change his ways, but the damage that he did to his community, to his friends, to his family, is immeasurable. And people like that all over the country, because for whatever reason we've been distracted. I mean, the CIA is behind. You can look up how the CIA is behind, for example, gangster rap, and the way gangster rap has been perceived. Or the way gangster rap was allowed to flourish in those ways, that's different than kind of how it started, where Ice Cube had throughout his time as a rapper, but what was elevated was guns and drugs and violence. And so, of course, the CIA is, but even to that point, we had a black president. J. Edgar Hoover's name is still on the FBI building. We look at Quantico in Virginia, FBI training facility, and they still got a quote from J. Edgar Hoover at the facility, right? Now, what are we supposed to think as black people about these institutions? And the reason I have to keep going back to these institutions and not looking at Ketanji as an individual is because she has chosen to lump herself in with this group. And so what I'm being asked to do, just from the audience, is to give her a chance in spite of her associations, right? And we just talked about the FOP. So if the Fraternal Order of Police is supporting this woman, that association by itself is enough for me to have a double take, right? And so the fact that this woman chooses to either become a Democrat or vote as a liberal, and I don't want to be misconstrued. The Republicans is trash. I'm not trying to advocate for anybody to vote for Republicans, but she chooses to be a liberal or a Democrat, and she chooses for that to be her home base, her basic support, her foundation. You're asking me, in spite of everything that I've seen or that I see, to give her a leeway that I don't give to nobody else. I believe George Bush is one of the most evil human beings that ever lived. And I believe that the Republican Party is as evil as they come. But I also understand the Democratic Party is able to be more impactful because they're able to weaponize their niceties. Like Malcolm said, he said, you know, the liberals are wolves, and I mean the conservatives are wolves. You can see the wolf coming. He said, but the liberals are like foxes. When you see a fox from a distance, it looks like he's smiling, but he's showing you his teeth. And so this is the kind of political understanding that I have about our duopoly, right? And so if this woman chooses with her white husband to say that, you know, she doesn't think race is a factor in our legal system, I gotta take her, like Maya Angelou said, the great poet of the freedmen in America, and the great American singer and performer. She said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yep.
And so she's got to show me different. 400 years, our people have been beat over the head by people who have promised us something. And so it's not up to me. It's not up to me to tell any of my brothers and sisters in the community to give them a chance, to give her a chance, give him a chance. They're going to be different. It's up to them to show different. So you got to build the organic support on your own, and you got to go in there and fight the dragons that you signed up to fight because you wanted this position, and prove me wrong, and prove us all that you got our interests in mind. It's not up to me to give no more, because black people is on the bottom, and we don't have no more, to give. We give any more, we're going to be asked out. You see what I'm saying? So that's where I'm coming from with this.
Hey,
I mean, we could say Kamala is a throwaway. Sorry.
I know. Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Darvell. You want to go, and then we can let Tashandra jump in.
Yeah, actually, let me go after Tashandra because I'm going to pivot the conversation.
Go ahead, Tashandra.
Well, again, I was just gonna give him some more pushback again on the whole drug thing because again, we're not looking at the unseen hand. You know what I'm saying? There are many unseen hands that are really steering the way this thing is going. Again, they have full spectrum dominance, which means they control both sides. This woman has already been bought. You know what I'm saying? By the op. So again, her even if she makes it to the Supreme Court and actually becomes a Supreme Court justice, her hands are already tied from the jump. You know what I'm saying? She's married to a Caucasian man, so her views are not. You know what I'm saying? And she making a little bit of money now, so her views have changed. Her views are not really going to be strictly for our people because she's not going to want to seem biased when when there's a Caucasian person that's elected, they're not afraid to show their bias. They let it be known that they bias.
True.
You know what I'm saying? But a lot of our people are so afraid of being shown that of a lot of our people are afraid of showing that they're biased for fear of losing their position. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can't be very strong in our ideology or our positionality. But you make a very good point when you said.
But you know what? And again, that goes back to our communities. The fact that you know what I'm saying, the communities that these young men come from. You know what I'm saying? These low income communities. When the white flight happened, when a lot of Caucasian people took their businesses out of our communities and then went elsewhere, that left us without, jobs, manufacturing jobs, or working at different plants and things. I mean, we have to understand that our money is leaving our community on a daily basis. Hell, all the Arabs got the gas stations. All the Koreans have the hair salons. So how can we control politics when we can't even control who comes into our communities and open up corporations?
Right. So Tashandra, that's gonna lead us down to other things. Like we know we need the capital to do that. But I was gonna say to what you and Stedman both have just said, like the thing we got to realize is that as it relates to Ketanji, if she not gonna come straight
share
out
this
and
stream,
ask her, how do you feel about
share
race
this live video
as it relates to law, if
on
she
your
ain't gonna
Facebook,
come out and say race and law as it relates to America are intricate and are woven within each other to the point where we have seen that law hasn't applied to everyone of a certain race. And if she ain't coming out with an answer like that, then you have to look side-eyed, because if her view is, I don't see it as an issue, then apparently you on some Barack Obama, we already made it, the world is post-racial, now black people, y'all need to do what the fuck y'all need to do. And
that's a problem.
Like Tashandra said, we arguing like, it's too many hidden hands from the prison systems that's getting the money, the corporations, all of these people. It's too many hidden hands. The Fraternal Order of Police supporting you, BLM supporting them in Biden, not demanding nothing. All of these hidden hands. That's problematic. And so we need to know your stance. And like Stedman said, you got to earn it from us. It just can't be we got to give you a chance first.
Huh.
And to continue on that same point, when you look at my heroes, right? I always tell people all my heroes was killed by their own governments, right? That's kind of how I explain it. Martin, Malcolm, the Panthers, Bob Marley, Medgar Evers, all of them. Even if it wasn't a government agent that worked with the protection of the U.S. government, right? And so, again, my political tradition and ideology is shaped by people who are willing to sacrifice it all up to their own lives for truth. If this woman can't come out and be full-throated in her support of freedmen or of the black community or justice as it pertains to how our legal system is organized, with a 51-50 Democrat majority in the Senate, what you gonna do when time is tough? Right? Because this supposed to be a cakewalk. And now if it ain't a cakewalk for you with a 51-50 majority, and Joe Manchin already said he got your vote, so that's 50 right there. You got the 50 you need, because Joe Manchin is so Kamala gonna vote for you. If you can't be full invested in the justice for your people, even if it's just your skin folk, I don't know, then why do I need to give you any kind of concession? You know what I'm saying? Why do I need to make any kind of special concessions for you to prove to me or to anybody? I got 2 daughters. I got a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old. I'm not telling my daughters to look up to this woman. I'm not telling my daughter to be nothing like this woman or nobody like her, not Maxine Waters, none of them.
That's a good point.
Because I want my daughters to live and speak a truth, right? My daughter, she going to school now. The teacher, she had a little 6-year-old. She had an issue with the teacher. They wanted her to do a test, and the test requires saliva. So I said, no, you're not doing the test. I don't feel safe with it. I don't want them having your DNA. Detroit Public Schools, I don't want them having the opportunity to have your DNA on file. You're not doing it. So I explained to her the whole situation. Prior to this, we talked about what handshakes meant and how handshakes are an agreement. Right? My daughter is 6 years old.
Said handshakes are an agreement.
Come to school, and somehow the school district has us written down as we have given verbal consent for my daughter to be tested. Now, we said we'll test her independently at a medical facility doing the nasal swab, and we'll give you the results. That wasn't sufficient. Fine, we're not going to test her. We're not going to do this test. So she go to school, and she has to tell her teachers, no, I'm not doing this test. I'm not doing this test. So the one teacher says, oh, I'm going to have to call your parents, trying to intimidate her. My daughter says, that's okay. And so the teacher kind of was a little, she was kind of a little taken aback by the 6-year-old saying that. So she said, well, look, we'll do the test today and we'll just go back to lunch. And the lady said, deal, and shook out her hand. My daughter put her hand in her pocket and said, no deal. That's the kind of child I'm raising. In the face of pressure, you stand up for what you know your parents taught you was right. At
That's
6 years old, I've never been more proud as a parent than that moment.
Who are the role models then for your daughter at this point?
Well, I guess
her mother, her grandmother, her aunts, the people that she comes around, her teachers that are doing the right thing.
Hold on.
Right? Those types of her father.
Let Alan go, then I'll go.
Yeah, great point. But Alan, go ahead and talk about the topic too. Like, so what you think about what you heard, and then definitely give us your opinions on Ketanji, Kamala, what we talking about, Black Girl Magic or Black Girl Tragic, the illusion of Obama or Clarence Thomas to what, Stedman was to saying, tell us how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, I just think that this is a matter of classism amongst our people. I think these women are great role models. And I'm looking at their education, how they navigated this system, and how they benefited from it. And at the same time, I really don't care what her stance is because I know how the system works. And I know that she's never going to be able, for example, these Republicans are accusing her as being an activist. And that's why they won't support her, because they feel like she's an activist. Like, like deep down, like she's radical, some shit like that. That's what they're accusing her of. But I'm going to look at her qualifications. I'm going to look at her accomplishments and what she overcame. And I'm going to say to my daughter, who's 16, this is the kind of Black woman that you want to aspire to be. And I don't think it's fair that like we're judging this person on these hearings, and we're saying, look, because she's married to a white man and she's not like answering the questions the way that we want her to answer them, then therefore she's a sellout, the coon. I think it's a huge problem in our community that we label successful Black people as sellouts and coons. I work in a inner city high school, and our kids are so scared of success. It's crazy. No one wants to be the first one to raise their hand when they have the answer. Like, everybody is scared to be laughed at for being smart. The only time I see them stand up is when we're outside.
Hey, Alan, I got to interject. Because you said something very interesting. You said we label successful Black people as sellout and coons. We got to be very careful saying that. It's not that we're labeling successful blackouts as sellouts, successful Black people as sellout and coons. What happens time and time again is that they only get there. Let me put it this way. You heard of the phrase chaos is a ladder. Well, in America, the only ladders that get you anywhere noticeable are white capital. So if we find that you're near the top, there's usually question to be asked about how you got there. That's not to say that black people have not promoted and created outstanding businesses. If we just look at, like, in Nashville, for instance, there's a pizza chain that's ran and owned by 3 black brothers. Outstanding, Slim and Huskies. And they got, location in Atlanta and location Sacramento, got a couple in Nashville. Outstanding operation. But they're all on black money. And I think they may have gotten some government set-asides during their earlier job that they had doing moving, right? So you got to ask questions about how did people get here? And that kind of speaks to the point that I was going to make earlier as far as the pivot. Again, we're not shooting at black successful people. What happens is too many times is that you find there's something else going on that allowed them access to the spaces or the opportunity to get where they did, or they're actually undergirded. They're actually undergirded by white capital in a way where it's disingenuous to say that we made it on our own.
Yeah, that's not true, brother.
But no, it is true though, right? Because you can look these are 3 examples we're looking at right now though, Alan. We're looking at 3 examples. We're looking at Kamala, we just talked about Clarence Thomas, and we're talking about Ketanji right now. And these individuals are not necessarily individuals who just rode on the wave of black first mindset, and that's what people are really critical about right now. That looks like focusing on policies, protections, and other remedies for the community in which you came from, because you had to fight. They talk about black women fighting twice as hard, 3 times as hard in order to get here. That's why they're crying in the middle of this hearing, because she had to go through all of this. She went through all of this because America chose to put us on the bottom. So when you get up there and you don't represent the people who are on the bottom, in the sense that you're not here fighting for us, you're just going on your own individual grifterism. You're there for your own individual attainment, and you're not trying to make a path for everyone else behind you. Then people start asking that question about, well, who do you represent? And that's the value set we're questioning today. Because at the end of the day, one thing that's in common between these 3 individuals is that Kamala, Clarence, and Ketanji, really weirdly enough, and again, this is no shade at their personal choices in terms of where they find love, but really weirdly enough, all 3 of them are married to non-black individuals. And so when we start looking at who's gotten into these positions, even when we look at Obama, although he married a black woman, he admitted he only done it for one reason. But then on this other side of that, we know that he had very tight ties to white ascension, to white ladders. And when I said the way black people really move up in a major way is there's white capital involved, or there's a white ladder involved. We need to be able to do that without having to rely on that ladder in such a divisive manner. And that ladder is divisive because they continue to abdicate responsibility for what put us here. And this is the thing.
Okay.
And it's not the fact, and just to the comment in the chat room that Ketanji made it on her own and not the merit of her husband. This is not about her husband at all in terms of him being the vehicle she rode in on. It's about the fact that she was not promoting the policies that people are thinking about, the real identity that people are hoping she is when they see her ascend. Because if you just want to see a black person in position, then you can take a white person and just paint them black. You can just take a white person and just paint them black. And it has nothing to do with black men not liking educated women either. I know a ton of great educated women who are outstanding, who make contributions to their community, and they do outstanding stuff. There are black women who are great that are in politics, who run cities. This is not about that. This is us looking critically at the political contributions and the political compass of these individuals who we are applauding as being successors of the struggle, and they are not that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't
you.
get how
I hear you.
how are you even questioned on that? That's I don't see
Can I
anything
finish
wrong
my
with that.
All right. So look, man, all I'm saying is all the people, man, who stood up, all the people that you guys are maybe see as role models, where they at now, and are you following in their footsteps?
If we had, so go back to Conspiracy Brothers comment. You talked about, no, you just, let me ask you a question. You said the people who we see as role models, the people who we see as role models are standing up for the right things, and they don't want the people who stand up for the right things in these positions. We've already said that.
Yeah, because this is America. That's not happening. You're not going to get no Malcolm X on a damn Supreme Court nomination.
Well, we're gonna have to make that fix, and that's the problem, right? We can't just keep accepting the mellow toast.
No, this is not mellow tone, nothing. We got to look at the fact. Look at her qualifications. Look at her education, and you tell me right now: are you going to tell your daughter not to aspire to achieve what this woman has achieved.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous, man.
That's different than what she represents.
No, it's
Right,
not.
and that's the problem,
It's not
right?
what she represents, man.
My bad.
Because what she's doing in these hearings is she is literally trying to make sure she gets that seat.
Dude, nobody's asking about what she's saying in the hearings, yo.
Filibustering anyway.
Hold on,
Man, 1 second, man.
Hold
I
on,
still haven't even got a chance to
Alan,
finish.
chill out, Alan. Look, I'm gonna say this.
I gotta
I'll
chill
say
out now.
no, just chill. We out there vibe, you know. I'll chill. Look.
I mean, I haven't got a chance to finish yet.
Yeah. No, I got you, bro. I just want to hop in real quick. I was gonna say what you saying with Ketanji, like as far as raising your daughter to believe that she can achieve what Ketanji achieved, I would say that's possible. Like there are Black people who could become federal judges, appeal judges, all type of things if they put their mind to it and go get the education. And if they have the family that has the structure that could support them to do it. You get what I'm saying? But in the sense of a Kamala, I wouldn't tell my daughter that she could definitely try to astound to become that, but understanding Kamala's background and some of the accesses that she do have, I would definitely understand that it's a whole difference. And that's something where people have put this fake idea, like how they did with Obama. Like it's this idea that Black people have become elected to the most powerful positions in politics. And the reality is these aren't the true descendants of slaves. And so if you're not coming from that class, how can I tell my daughter or my son who will be of that bloodline that, just like Obama did it, you can do it. And the reality is he had a whole different thing going on that allowed them to allow him in.
Like what? What do you have going on, brother? He went to Occidental College.
Are we gonna have dialogue with other people?
Hold on, Alan.
Yeah. Cut me off.
Alan, yeah. We're gonna let you keep going, bro. But we're gonna share the stage. Hanif, go ahead and jump in because I know you've been on stage for a little minute. Alan, you're gonna get in, bro. Chill. You're gonna get in right after Hanif for some shit.
I ain't gonna speak long, but Darvell was making a very good point. It is that access, and that's the problem I think we have with a lot of stuff, because even you can look back at Valerie Jarrett. She was married to a white man, and she had access. Look at all the government contracts and jobs she was able to get, and many others before her. The problem I have with the whole argument with the Ketanji and Kamala, I was in a room yesterday where they spoke about Ketanji. She's this and overwhelming and all that, but then we say Clarence Thomas is a sellout, and he's ultimately done the same thing that Ketanji Jackson is doing. They're both married to white people, and you're using his voting record to call him a sellout. I have a problem with that. He's the second Black justice of all time. I'm not a Clarence Thomas supporter. Let me be clear on that. But we can't use his voting record against him because it doesn't fit a narrative that we like, then call him a sellout. Because we did this whole Chucks and Pearls thing for Kamala, and guess what? Since he's been in the White House, over a dozen people have left her side of the aisle where it comes into the White House because they don't want to work for it because it's considered a hostile work environment. And she wasn't really popular anyway, where she didn't ascend to even be one of the finals for the presidency, not the presidential Democratic nominee. So I find it hard. I find something wrong with all of a sudden when it comes to being a vice president, she gets selected. So the whole thing with the Ketanji Jackson situation, when they're coming at her about her record as a judge, I don't really see a problem with that. Yes, I don't like that Tucker Carlson goes on TV and questions her education. I think that's a bit capping a little bit because you didn't do it for Amy Coney Barrett or anybody else. But at the same time, her record as a judge, yes, that needs to be talked about. And there are some questions there. So I kind of agree with some of the things that are going on. But I see her filibustering a lot and not really saying, hey, this is what I'm standing on. This is why. And we don't see the ascension of Black folks speaking on certain Black issues when they get there. They're just trying to get to the certain position. And what happens? We follow them. We believe them. And then when they get there, they pretty much turn their back to us and say, we'll come back for you later. Don't worry about it. We're doing it with Kamala Harris. And we're not holding these politicians' feet to the fire. Cory Booker gets on TV and says, you're my sister. Cory Booker is my senator. There have been over 20 walkouts in Newark schools, and people have requested for him to come, and he does not come back because he doesn't have interest in the small person having something to do around here. But yet you want our votes every 6 years. So I have a hard time just believing some of these things that I'm seeing. And of course, there's always dark money somewhere with certain people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, somebody said earlier that, about the Republicans. I think it might have been conspiracy that the Republicans is not this and the Democrats is that. Let me just be clear: behind closed doors, they all for the same thing. So it really doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. Now, if you want to really look at Democrats, I really feel like Democrats done did a shitty job because Democrats control most of the inner cities. And they, you know what I'm saying, if they're controlling most of the inner cities, why do all of the urban inner cities look like fucking trash?
Exactly.
Why is there no capital getting to the inner cities to where, you know what I'm saying, people who live in those communities, our people who live in those communities can go ahead and start, you know what I'm saying, businesses that are going to thrive and survive and create jobs. You see what I'm saying? But instead, they sit up and they go and they cry to Congress. Oh, black people need this money for this, and black people need this money for that. And then when they get the money, that they divert it to themselves, or they divert it to, you know what I'm saying, white communities or other communities that are already thriving and surviving. So it's bullshit. Like, we don't even, when you look at, you know what I'm saying, the local government from a local level, you know what I'm saying, the majority of the contracts go to Hispanics. The majority of the construction contract go towards Hispanics. They don't even go to black men, who are black men and women who, you know, are either in the construction field or who are trying to get government contracts. So I mean,
right.
My thing is this particular argument to me, and this is just what I'm saying on what I've seen my 40 years in living in the US and on this earth, is pointless. It is pointless.
Pointless.
These people have already been bought and sold. They've
Ooh.
already been bought and sold. They could give a, when they get to the position or get to where they going, they could give a fuck less about if their people are thriving and surviving.
And that's
They
where
don't
we need
care.
to call. So I just want to insert one thing I said in the chat. It's that the difference is, you know, aspiring to the optics of these people getting to these places is not the same as aspiring to the character of the individual. And you just spoke to that. The character is, we don't care about the folks where we came from. We had to get ourselves here, and that's all we bought and sold, like you said.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just,
and also to be fair, when we call Clarence Thomas a coon, let's be honest, it's his voting record. It's not because he's with a white woman, right? Clarence Thomas, his voting record, right,
True.
is very anti-black, right? So when we say Clarence Thomas is a coon, let's take in context is that the man, his voting record sucks. He voted against affirmative action and many other things, right? So that's when the black community say Clarence Thomas is not one of us, it's not necessarily because he's with a white woman. It's his voting record. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, and I want
I
to.
mean,
That's cap.
I'll go next.
So let's give Eric and Gerard came on
hold
stage.
Yeah, hold on. Before we do that, everybody that's in on the stage or in the audience, make sure y'all tap that button and join our club. We're gonna make sure we host the rooms, and then you'll be able to just see them from there. So just make sure you do that. But yeah, go ahead, Darvell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's let Eric and then Gerard. I pulled him up.
Okay. Yeah. With this Ketanji lady, I mean, I will say that she is qualified to do the job. She done, been on every circuit of courts and laws that you can think of. But my thing is that I see like a lot of black women on Facebook, reposting them little videos of the senators asking her a question and grilling her. I mean, everybody gets the same treatment at the end of the day. Everybody gets cross-examined and grilled by all of the senators and
He said they be
everybody
getting
and pretty
grilled.
much
They be getting toasted.
in politics. I just don't like that part that it's making it looking like she getting picked on, and I see other black people kind of like saying trying to compare her to Clarence Thomas, saying that since he got a white wife and people not bring that up, and they kind of that's why his name is keep on getting brought up in this conversation. Since y'all picking on her for having a white wife, we gonna bring Clarence Thomas out to cut and start picking on him too. Like you only had 35 years to do that. So I just don't like the fact that a lot of people, black people in general, are acting like these senators and everybody in the government asking her questions like they're trying to pick on the black girl. That's the part I don't like about this.
well, I'm gonna say
And
this.
I don't
So
think one last thing too. Now you notice, this ain't got nothing to do in ain't none of these women groups, coming to her defense. ain't none of these white women groups coming to her defense too, because white women don't play that. She laying up with a white dude. Damn sure white women don't like that. So that's another thing too. Nobody's looking at this as a victory for black people. This is an individual victory for her and her only. And I don't think nothing she does, nothing she can do is going to benefit black people whatsoever. And I'm in it with that one.
Well, again, like I said, the conversation is, kind of just it doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, so what I'm looking at is all of the people that were elected or so-called selected into political positions of power that come from our communities before her. What have they done? You know what I mean? They have had all this time, they have had all these years to create legislation that will give us a certain amount of protection from police brutality, and certain economic impacts, and they have chosen not to do so.
Yep, we know.
That's our fault.
My thing is this. You know what I'm saying? What's gonna make her any different?
Well, we understand that.
That's our fault. That's our fault for voting for these people.
Yep.
20 and 30 and 40 years over and over and over and over again.
Exactly.
That's our fault.
Exactly. That and you know what? That is our fault. And again, because a person is only got these people in these positions are only going to do what we allow, because again, we do not hold them accountable. We do not bombard their office with calls and letters saying that we're dissatisfied with the service that they're supposed to be giving us, because in other words, you know what I'm saying, they serve us.
Got
they
it.
work for us.
Right. Hold on.
And we just,
yeah, Ketanji. Yep, I agree. Hold on. Let's go to Gerard. Gerard, you got anything to add to this? Jay Lamont? Oh man, how's his mic on? This dude muted.
By the way, is that Freedman Club? That's the one you told us the Freedman Collective. That's the one we tap into to join the group.
Yeah, go ahead and tap into that. I'm gonna re-upload our YouTube link because we live on there too. But outside of that, I mean, shit, when we host the rooms, it'll be through this club, so you'll be able to see it.
And can I, Darvell, before you say anything, if you don't mind, Omar, you say Clarence Thomas voted against affirmative action. How does that benefited us?
What?
I mean, it's a long list of things. It benefited us in many ways, but that's another topic.
Oh, affirmative action. Yeah. Oh, God.
That Asians done took over that, and the black people pull out the whole system.
Hey, shut these dudes down.
White women too.
Yeah, white women disproportionately benefit from affirmative action.
I agree with all. I agree with all of that. Also, blacks benefited also. So yeah.
All right,
but I mean, so
conspiracy
that we talked about. Glad we talked about Clarence Thomas. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hold on, we got to go to Gerard though. He's been trying to talk.
Oh, he came in. All right. Thought he was.
Gerard, I thought you were trying to talk anyway.
All right, if he don't talk, instead just get a reset of the room. Let folks know we're talking about the topic, and then go into what you're gonna say.
Oh, okay, so what is it, Freedman Club or whatever? This is my first clubhouse. I'm kind of old on this, but so we just talking about Ketanji and Kamala and the idea of black girl magic or black girl tragic, meaning their long-term impacts for the black community, black people, black women, and our needs, freedmen or however you want to look at it. But what I wanted to say about Clarence Thomas specifically, I watched a little interview with him and Julian Bond. It's on YouTube. I'd encourage anybody to if they can find it, just type in Clarence Thomas and Julian Bond. He gives an interview about his life, and it really was eye-opening for me because I had heard that Clarence Thomas was a revolutionary at some point. He's from Savannah, Georgia. He was raised by his grandfather in the South and the deep South in the 50s and the 60s, and that's his frame of reference, right? And he was a revolutionary at one point, was really into Malcolm X, was a protester, and something happened, and he kind of, and so what he said is once he was protesting in New York, he was in New York, I think, he wasn't in school. He was, I forget what he was, if he was working or what. And he said he was protesting, and he said he heard his grandfather's voice, and his grandfather was disappointed in him. And so that's why he stopped. He stopped kind of his revolutionary, he had afro and everything. And what that showed me really was the trauma of the individual, right? If we look at all people, we can see the trauma that they suffered and the things that they've gone through. And I'm not making excuses to Clarence Thomas, but what it did is I was able to respect him a little more because I could see the trauma that created the individual that he was. And when I say respect, that don't mean I would want him on my team in any kind of way. But what I am saying is, even with his white wife, which, you know, I don't agree with that for anybody because I think that that affects how you look at things. It gave me a perspective about why he does what he does, right? So you can say he votes against black interests, but, you know, at least how he portrayed himself, I'm always very skeptical of all people, but how he portrayed himself and how he presented his history, he was originally going to school to be a priest. I think he grew up Catholic. And so that gave a bit of insight. But like Hanif said, if we can say Clarence Thomas is a sellout because he got a white wife, because of his voting record, the Democrats aren't any better. And that's to Chandra's point. The Democrats are no better than the Republicans because you have a situation where, and I think Alan left, but he had Malcolm X's profile picture. And he said, we're not going to have a Malcolm X on the Supreme Court. Then what good is the Supreme Court? If you have black people in positions of power who are doing the same evil that the whites are doing, what good is this?
Right.
What is the point? That's why I said about Obama. When you look at the trajectory, or when he played that clip, when you looked at the trajectory of the black community after Obama got elected, it went down. What good are you? Yep. So it's not about your qualifications. Everybody who's been on the Supreme Court probably qualified, you know, without going into too much detail about looking at their record. I don't think anybody's been on the Supreme Court who is unqualified for that job.
Yep.
And I do believe that there are hundreds of people in America
qualified is not the question
on the Supreme Court and be qualified. Alan Dershowitz ain't on the Supreme Court. They say he's one of the foremost constitutional lawyers in America. He ain't on the Supreme Court. So, I mean, that's irrelevant. We know she's qualified for the job. But what we're asking is this: if I'm supposed to consider this a win for my community, if I'm supposed to consider this anything better than Clarence Thomas replacing Thurgood Marshall, who had a history of fighting to uphold and uplift and gain justice for the descendants of freedmen in America, she ain't showing nothing. If that's what this is supposed to be, if it's supposed to be more than that, she's not showing nothing. And we could talk about the money room, you know, the backdoor deals and all this hidden, because you see, my name is Conspiracy Brother, so I love talking about all of that. We could talk about that all day. I know my panel mates would not like it, but we could talk about that all day. But that's neither here nor there, because this is the job that she's put up for, that she's accepted to do. Just like Sarah Palin. I said Sarah qualified to be vice president when she was running. And so here now, but she didn't turn the job down because you asked me to be vice president, I'm going to take the job. You ask her to be the president, the Supreme Court nominee, she's going to take the job. That's irrelevant. So now this is what you do. Are we looking for people? Because we always jump to Malcolm. There's a whole lot of black people that couldn't stomach Malcolm, but we can't even get a Martin on the Supreme Court. Somebody who's so dedicated to justice that they're willing to lay their life down to turn the other cheek for justice.
Hey,
right?
That was a bar, and I was gonna say we can't even get that in the White House yet. Like not a Malcolm and not even a Martin, and that's the reality. And so it don't matter if you black, if you're not gonna be willing to make the changes that we're looking for. That's basically what he alluded when he said they'll never put a Malcolm X on the Supreme Court or somebody who has a righteous view like that. You get what I'm saying? I can agree with they'll never do that, but will they ever put somebody on there that's transformative to the point where, you know, they're outspoken and willing to go the extra mile, like 5 Thurgoods on the damn court at the same time?
So, okay. Go ahead. Is that Gerard? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was me, man. I'm sorry, my other line, my line was down, so I had to go join from another phone. So to add on, it was you touched on it, Stedman. There was a lot of good points that was being made by both the panelists and those who were asked to come, those who came up. Just trying to, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Is like, you know, the Democrats are no better. That's just the Republicans. They're all the same side of the same coin. Then the funny thing about it, you know, you have made a point in your talking. I won't say speech, but when you were responding, you had said something that kind of stuck out for me. You were saying how, like, you know, the Democrats are, you know, they get stuff for black people, then they move it. No, actually, that's the craziest thing about it. They don't get anything. They don't ask anything. There is no Democrats, white, black, or indifferent, right, that actually advocate for blacks. And when we say blacks, we're specifically talking about the freedmen, right? That's the problem. It's all class based. It's all they'll lump us in, and they'll lump other groups in, and that's why we don't get anything, because we don't have anyone that's advocating for us full heartedly, like a Malcolm X. More importantly, like a Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a race man for sure. That was for his people. He wasn't talking about all of this, non-racial thing, right? Because at that point in time, it was really just black and white. So it was kind of hard to escape from being black. But now we have all these different ethnic groups and people, and now we could say black and brown. Every time we hear that, like black and brown and Ann Brown, I don't know who she is. We always getting all of our everyone jumps and mules on our struggle. But no one actually advocates for us specifically, and only specifically. All they can come up with is class-based, and that's why Kamala, I'm not going to do anything specifically for black people, and she raised her tone in her response. So at the end of the day, again, if we can say Clarence Thomas is a sellout based on his record, and that's what we're referring to. When Alan, I'm sad that I wasn't able to come up and really, talk to him about what we were talking about. We're not talking about anybody's qualifications, like Stedman said. That's inconsequental, because they're qualified at the bare minimum for whatever that may be, right? These posts may be, because there's a lot of latitude when it comes into qualifications, right? Because there's plenty of Supreme Justices that never even practice law, like a trial lawyer or whatever. There's so many different things that come into qualifications. But really, it's the record. What is your record? And just like Kamala Harris, right? What was her record as the DA of San Francisco, as the Attorney General of California? What is the record of Ketanji as the appellate court's judge, and so on and so forth, and all the different positions that she held? What was her record? Was it, and did she rule, or did she take positions that would be in favor of our people? And in the case that she hasn't or she didn't, then I feel we shouldn't support her. At the end of the day, we cannot get fooled by a black faces and high spaces. We all have, that's what the saying goes. Not all skin folk are kin folk. You know what I mean? And that's what we got to get beyond. This is a symbolism thing, man. And so I'll leave it at that and let anyone else speak.
So let me give you a little bit of pushback on that, because I know you were saying that I'm trying to put it in a way to where you can understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
So, okay, she is trying to obtain this particular seat. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to figure out if she's really for us or if she's really against us. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if she's for us or against us or not, because it's already rigged. It's already rigged. I mean, she's already accepted, you know what I'm saying, donations and money, you know what I'm saying, for her particular campaign from white owned organizations. You know what I'm saying? She is not somebody that, that we have put our own money behind and pushed to this particular seat. You know what I'm saying? So again, it does not matter at this point, because there are resources, and a lot of people say, oh, black people don't have money. Black people do have money, but they choose to spend it on the wrong shit. Because again, we have been bought and sold on a narrative of looking rich instead of actually building generational wealth. We don't even know what building generational wealth looks like. That hasn't been modeled for us as a community, right? I mean, yeah, during Black Wall Street, or in the early 1930s and 40s, did we have multimillionaires? Yeah, but very few. So I mean, when you look at our education system, you know what I'm saying? When you look at our healthcare system, when you look at our political system, yeah, we may work in those industries, but at the same time, what do we own It's about ownership. You know what I'm saying? It's about being able to own and control what goes on, you know what I'm saying, in our communities, and what are we pushing forward for? I just really feel like going for a political position, you're really doing, or any position within a system that we did not create, it's really pointless, because again, they have the control. We don't, I mean, yeah, we have the control if we really want it, but we don't want it. We don't, because we don't want the responsibility that comes along with that control, which means that we're gonna have to pay, and we don't want to pay. We want to receive, but we don't want to pay the cost to be the boss. And that's what I'm saying on that. I mean, at this point, it just does not matter. This is the same song and dance on a different day. They use our own people to get us hyped up, to get our hopes up. And then again, when that person gets in that position, it's like, oh well, to hell with you. You know what I mean? And somebody else had just said the same thing earlier. Like, again, our solutions lie within our own communities, not in the local government, not in the global government. It lies within us.
Okay.
It lies within us. We're gonna have to work our ass off
Yeah.
to get to a point to where, you know what I'm saying, we can be a real powerful people as a whole. And we don't want to put the work in. We want to pray. We want to make God responsible. Oh, my light bill need to be paid, so I'm gonna just wait on God. God gonna do something. No, even the Bible says faith without works is dead. We have the faith. We'll pray all day long, but don't ask us to do no work, because we don't want to do that. That's
Well,
too much
and that
responsibility.
goes to the political work as well. To Chandra, I mean, I understand. Believe me, I understand and respect. The do for self. We know where that origin came from. Where that's basically has been present with us since Marcus Garvey's times, and so on and so forth. Carried on through the Nation of Islam, so on and so forth. Man, the reality is also that but that's also we're also being sold a bill of goods as well. And that nature is just both. It's a two-legged stool, if not a three. You have to have political will, power, and organization from people, and then also you have to have government as well as business. You notice that all these other communities, they are politically active as well. We get told that they're not, but they are. Look how quick that Asian hate bill got passed. That didn't get passed without political pressure or influence by the Asian community to get those bills drafted. At the end of we have to have both. The thing is that we are so far behind due to racism and and we being shut out of the system. It's the game is already, so we can't do it all bootstrapped at this point, all on our own money. Like the idea that if we just spending our money we stop spending our money on Jordans and whatever frivolous thing that people will say, and we just don't, and we just focus on creating some black economic powerhouse, that then we'll be able to succeed and be on the same level as mainstream America is a facade.
Thank
the
you.
Black power, the idea of a black power buying power is a fake, is a marketing tool. I say this, because you can eat at McDonald's does not mean that you can own a McDonald's, right? So just because we participate as consumers in this economy doesn't mean that we have the money, that we just pulled all of that money together, that we'll be able to, economically sustain ourselves if we did that. That's impossible, because wealth is not just about income. Wealth is about, assets and all those things. Especially that's what rich people rely on when when income goes down for whatever, cycles that capitalism, because that's the nature of it, is going to be ups and downs, draws and troughs, and so on and so forth. And we've been and when you don't get wealth starting at zero today, right? The opportunities were already in the past, and those are compounded. We can't act like now we can start. If we just pulled all our money together, we know our ancestors did that in the night, in all the other areas after post-slavery, right? In the Reconstruction era, and in the Jim Crow era, in the 1920s and 30s. There's a great book called The Color of Money that talks about all of these ideas. black banking and so on and so forth. Guess what? Because the political structure was against it, they just rewrote the game. So like you talk about how the game is rigged in the political aspect, it's rigged on the economic aspect, because as you had stated earlier, I heard you say full domination spectrum, right? They own all the major controls of all of the freaking areas of activity. Right. So you can't just say, OK, we'll just nullify and not participate in one aspect of activity, and we'll just focus on the other and feel like we're going to be able to just rewrite the rules and then reset them up in another different way. You have to do both. And we have to take our leverage as a voting politic. Right. Because that's really what we have. Collectively, we have to take that leverage and pressure the political system to open up the economic system, as well as participate in the economic system as well. So I think it's a two-pronged strategy and probably multiple prongs. I've said my piece on that. I'm sure you want to respond, or other people would like to respond.
Yeah, I need to get in here because we need to control this misinformation almost, because this is a misnomer. And so we gotta address that, just like you did, Gerard, out the gate. I appreciate that. First of all, let us not get this. I'm not going to let this idea that somehow we can pool money and run away from our negative wealth position that we're headed towards just because we're buying Jordans and Big Macs and whatever else you can dream up that people are apparently wasting their money on. We've already had that debunked by several people who've been in this space, who've done the work, economists and other folks who know this from the inside and out. The fact is, though, that narrative doesn't get promoted, because then that would really push us towards a true policy-based solution. Because at the end of the day, right, we can't catch up without being involved in politics, because at this point, we are chasing as a group. If we talk about the median wealth position, we are chasing to kill the racial wealth gap. That's the only way we get equity. We won't be able to operate anything that can compete if we don't have enough wealth to be competitive against what the mainstream is. So you can say we got millionaires. Well, they got billionaires. So you can open up a station with $50 million, just like Black News Network or Black News Channel, the one that just announced it was going under, just went bankrupt. You can open up a station with 50 mil, but if you ain't got nobody else injecting more and more and more money into that, like billionaires and multimillionaires and corporations they can even do stock to help fund this type of endeavor, you're going to go under, because the Black community itself cannot support you because the wealth is not there. So when we talk about that BNC as an example, the Black News company, whatever they call it, channel, Black News Channel, that was started actually by a non-Black person altogether. I think his name is Khan, Amir Khan, maybe. I might have his name wrong. He put 50 mil into it, and he said he's not putting a dime more. And that thing just went under all of a sudden. They were struggling. And my point is that you can say that he did that and he could do that without even flinching. That was just an investment. That was just like a entrepreneurial endeavor. He said, here's 50 mil, see what you can do with it. We gonna do that? No. So when we start talking about trying to do something on our own, the best we can do is try to slow the bleeding. We're talking about exponential growth, and killing the racial wealth gap cannot be done just by Black people coming together on anything except politics. We need to be focused on pushing the transformative justice politics that are reparations, protections, and other policies that create set-asides so that we can have the equitable opportunity and to recollect all that wealth that was diverted. You look at all these neighborhoods and all these different businesses that were pushed under either by policies that were against us or but just by white people coming and burn them down and us never getting justice. That is a whole swath of wealth that was lost that today would be worth 20 times as much. And then we ain't even talking about the Freedmen's Bank. So this whole idea needs to go to the trash can and needs to stay there. Don't bring it back in here. Now, the other thing is that in terms of Black people are not looking at this as a victory. I think Eric said that, or someone said that earlier. Black people are looking at this as something because they're sharing this stuff like cake work across everything from Facebook to Instagram and all the other social media platforms. Now, that may be a vocal minority, but that's the only minority that's speaking. So everyone else is seeing that and they're getting that idea that that's what we're doing. And that's part of the problem when we get into politics and just being a Black activist group in general, or advocacy for real transformative policy, is that if we aren't heard over the other narrative, even if we're a small group and the other group is just slightly bigger than us in terms of their voice size, we're going to get drowned out and no one will ever hear us. It doesn't take everyone. It just takes a critical mass. So no, don't think that this is not being applauded as something positive by the Black community. At best, They may be ambivalent, but most of them are positive on it. We are in the minority being critical about how it's nice to see the identity, nice to see the image, the optics, but the real character of this individual does not speak to what we should be looking for. And just to be clear, when we talk about policy, when we talk about like the Kamalas and the Obamas as good examples, these two people don't really represent ascension of Black people in the sense that America needs to be concerned about, because the people that America needs to be concerned about that we claim are Black people are the freedmen and their descendants. And there is no freedman descendant in the White House that we can be pointing at and saying we actually did this. That's the first thing. Let's be careful about that. That's an important thing. But then even when you do get a freedman descendant like Clarence Thomas into place, their policy may not even be for us. And so like Tashonda said, they're bought and sold in a sense. And to her point, we don't hold these people accountable. And that's part of the problem. And the fact is we don't hold them accountable. And it's connected to why our people are gushing over Ketanji Brown Jackson. It's just this ignorance, ambivalence that it's very rooted in what I'm seeing in the chat. People just thinking that this idea that if we promote Blackness in spaces that we've done a good job, and this other fake idea that Black people have money. We don't. We've already seen very clearly the median wealth position is going negative for the Black community. We just had a whole bunch of businesses get wiped out by Corona, and they're not coming back. And the ones that you might be claiming are coming back, those are one-person businesses. The data is out there, but don't nobody want to promote that real reality because it means that we need to drive real policy. Nobody wants to talk about that. The game being rigged, so forth. Look, the game is rigged all it wants to be until we come and we deal with it. And if that means that all of us are going to jail, we all need to go to jail. If we all going to get shot like MLK, then that's what needs to happen. I don't want to get shot, and I don't think that's really what's going to happen. But my point is that people are being backwards when they initially come out the gate talking about it's rigged, or we'll never get this, or we can't do this, or this, that, and the third, and we need to go and find a different way. I seen a comment in the chat earlier about we should have never ended segregation. That's backwards as well, because the idea that we ended segregation on desegregation is the beginning of the policy trend towards integration, and integration is not finished. That's why we're having these issues. I'm gonna mute you, Stedman. So that's the problem. We haven't been integrated. That's why we're struggling right now. When you have full economic integration with equity, then these issues would not be as big as they are now. So that again is all tied into the same bundle of misunderstanding and misinformation and misnomers about this idea that we've been doing this to ourselves, or that we can't get over on the system and make this our country that we built from the ground up. We can. We just need to get that critical mass. The same critical mass is running around on Facebook. Nope, let me finish. No, because there's been a lot of stuff been said here. Now the other
you gotta go ahead, Lynn, because we go like I ain't gonna
let other people talk though,
I know
man.
what she was wrong on. I know what she was wrong on, but I also side with on the things that she was saying. But that's why I just put this chart up in my PTR to go ahead and say that that's how Black people spend their money. But everything else just said has been on point.
What do you mean in terms of the money thing?
I wasn't spreading misinformation.
What?
So I don't see how you could take what I said as misinformation.
We good.
I was not spreading misinformation. So
that Black people are misspending their money. Where's the link, Ernest?
No, I said look at my profile picture. It shows you the chart of how they're spending their money. It's an article. I was just saying that like the most they spend their money on is housing. And there's a few other things. Like it has been debunked to what Darvell's saying, but I was gonna say the spared sister Tashondra, I was just gonna say she has been on point for everything else just besides the
well, sure, that's fine, but in the spirit of that element, though, that is very important.
And I say I can understand it coming from, like the bootstrapper mindset of recognizing that. To your point, Darvell, yes, we do need to do the politics, but to Chandra's point, there is a level of self-accountability that also needs to be had, because our grandparents and shit, they were working harder than immigrants. But we can't say that the same about these youth who have been stripped of that mindset or mentality to put in that work because they don't believe in the system at large. Because of the Black people like Kamala or X, Y, and Z who have put their issues and priorities behind in the name of we are making it, but they like nothing has changed in the trenches, like we said. So, that's my 2 cents.
Well, I wasn't saying that policies don't need to change. First of all, I mean, everybody here has had different experiences, everybody here has a different opinion or mindset, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can always agree to disagree and keep it pushing. I'm not trying to make someone see how I see it, or make someone have the mind frame that I have. The mind frame that I have, my mind frame is can only be unique to my experiences and what I know works and what I know doesn't work. So I just don't understand how you take what I said as misinformation.
Well, the fact is the fact, though. Fact is fact. So if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Okay, so what about what I said was wrong?
The idea that black people have money.
They do.
What, really, statistically speaking, are you really going to hold that? The median wealth position, you telling me that it's there?
We do have money.
Darvell, that's the sister position. We know.
Right.
We can wait.
No, that's the point that I was getting at about misinformation, though. When we start spreading that.
That's not misinformation.
No, wait, Darvell, I'm going to clean it up. Darvell, for you, I got you. We know where the data at. And we know like, so to Sandra, what we're going to tell you is that
he kind of running point on.
What we're going to tell you, Stare, you ain't on mute, bro. You going to jump in, though, after mute. You heard me? Hold on, I'm going to go ahead and mute.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, I was going to say, like, to what Sister Sandra has been saying, like, she's saying in a sense that if a black person tried their hardest, that maybe they could change some of their positions if they change their attitude on some things. Now, to Darvell's point, that's not true because of all of the barriers that we got and all of these things. Like you said, to Sandra, you said earlier that full spectrum thing. Like they controlling the board, they controlling how the drugs, they controlling the education, they controlling how much money we make, even if we do get in corporate. So all of these things, that impacts our well-being. So even if we try to do the right things, it wouldn't even match or hold up to what they able to get because the system is paid for them. And so like that's where the policies come in and say like, yo, we need this catch-up game because y'all have held us back for so long. And black people shouldn't be under the illusion that because we have like this high spending power that we are wealthy, because the reality is a lot of us, when we look at the poorest black people that we know from the hoods, that's a real reality of how much money black people got. The fact that most of those families are relying on food stamps or some sort of government assistance. Like, let's just say if the government cut all that shit off, imagine where the most poorest black people in the hood would be today, especially the little kids who rely on Link and all of this, even if their parents is working a job, but maybe it's only $8 an hour or $10 an hour, depending on the state. Like, because of that reality, even if those people try to put their money together, most of them might not make it out. But there's a few of them who are going to be exceptional and make it out. And we just can't make the narrative that it's possible for like the whole group without us getting that policy in place, because we got to understand that there is only limited seats. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the real reality.
Well, my thing is this, you know what I'm saying? Each one teach one, right? So, we have to we have to have a mindset of, doing everything that we possibly can. Like once we learn to correct, you know what I'm saying, a certain mistake. Okay, so like take credit for instance.
Oh my gosh. Are we really doing this?
That's something that can really help you get out of poverty, right? But when you don't understand how the credit system works, or if you don't understand financial literacy, or if you don't understand how to practice the law of delayed gratification, because you live in an instant gratification world, that can really be difficult to kind of taper your financial decisions. You know what I'm saying? Because your financial decisions and your spirituality go hand in hand. I mean, a lot of people feel
a lot of
like,
people
oh,
think
well,
this
let me
thing.
just
That's
go
why we
and
need to
buy
deal with
this
this.
so I can feel good about myself, because I don't feel good about myself in other areas where I'm making bad decisions. Or let me
Wow.
go and buy this new shiny thing to impress this person. Or let me go get this big ass house that I can't afford just so that I can say that I'm making it. Like, we're not addressing that. So when I say that we have money, do I understand that, there's a large part of us that don't? Absolutely. Absolutely. I will never
Well,
sit
there's no
here
point
and
in saying
pretend
that.
like I don't know that there is a large portion of our people who are suffering, right? Who are suffering because whether, maybe they had, mom was on crack, back during the 70s or 80s era and dad went to prison for whatever, you know what I'm saying? Yes, a lot of our people are suffering. But I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying, from both sides, that yes, we do need a multiple prong, you know what I'm saying, strategy to where we can address, you know what I'm saying, multiple issues at the same time and continue to try to push forward. Like again, I can agree to disagree with somebody. I will never sit here and say that what somebody's saying is misinformation, because again, it's just opinion. It's just
It's
opinion.
opinion.
Just like take like for me,
Opinion.
just for
Yep.
instance. I'm not saying that it's fact. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm not saying that it's not true. I know the mistakes that I made in my life, and I know the things that I have done and studied and researched and put into play to overcome those mistakes. You know what I'm saying? To overcome those hurdles and those struggles, right? So I have several degrees, right? I come from an IT and a medical background. I used to work for AT&T, right? Worked for them for many, many years. Made shit ton of money. But when I started wanting to get up in upper level corporate management, of course, I hit a glass ceiling. So for me to not to go to work and be stressed out and have to deal with, you know, the micro aggression racism that happens on these jobs that we work every day, I said, you know what? There's got to be a better way to do this. So
Everybody does
I
that.
went the entrepreneurial route, right? I began to study, you know what I'm saying, certain multimillionaires and billionaires. Okay, what did they strategically do that got them from making 100,000 a year to 1 million a year? Or what did they do to take their company from a $1 million a year company to $100 million a year company? There are
Be right.
strategies and there are steps, because success leaves clues, right?
But
So, but
you're
again,
Yeah, hey,
if
hold on. Tashandra, we gonna go ahead and land up on the point, and then Gerard, if you gonna go ahead and speak, go ahead.
well,
And then
yeah. Actually, let
we
Shashonda go.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
I will forego
No,
my time
no,
to give it
yeah,
to Fahim, Terry,
yeah.
and
That's what.
Kennedy. Leave
That's
the other
exactly.
people
Yeah,
talk.
that's what I was exactly gonna say. So yeah, we can do it like that.
go ahead, y'all can go ahead. That's fine. I'll wait. Go
No, I
ahead.
was gonna say, go ahead. You can land Tashandra, and then we're gonna let Fahim, Terry, and Kennedy jump in too.
I was just gonna say, if you're brought up in a community, or if you're surrounded in a community by drugs, or lack or poverty, and you're not exposed at a young age to how the other side lives and how there is opportunity, how you
Right. And
can
why are we not
do certain
exposed?
things, you know what I'm saying, strategically with your money, to
Just so
be
y'all
able to help
know that
catapult
she
you to
can't hear
that
me
next
right
level
now. I'm just talking to
economically.
y'all on the
Then
stream.
yes, you're gonna think that, I can't make it. I've seen people be killed in front of me. My grandmother was a drug dealer, uncle was a drug dealer. This is the family business. This is all we know. You know, of course you're gonna think that until you learn better. Because when you learn better, you do better. But
Nah.
I'm just gonna say this, there is opportunity, for us all to try to do everything that we possibly can to teach one another, things that we have learned, along the way that work, so that other people can say, oh, you know what? Well, if that person did it, I can do it too. I mean, I just think that we're better served, trying to help our people get business funding, and try to tackle it from a entrepreneurial standpoint, but as well as a political standpoint. So I mean, I just don't feel like I'm saying stuff that's misinformation. But I mean, hey, I'm just agreeing to disagreeing. I'm gonna keep it pushing. I'm gonna let other people speak. Peace.
80% of black-owned businesses fail within the first 18 months. And the ones that succeed, the big ones, have had some government set-asides. If we don't do politics to get more set-asides and to get the justice we need economically, we're going to continue that 80% failure rate. And that's well above the national average. Go on ahead.
All right, so so Fahim, Terry, Kennedy, Allen, Omar, Arthur. I don't know which one wants to go first and what order.
We're gonna let Fahim get in there. We heard
Yeah, Fahim,
Omar.
you all go
Omar,
ahead, get in if
hey
you're still
Omar,
with
if
us,
you
man.
want to jump in, you can though. But go ahead, Fahim, and then
Yeah,
Terry.
I'm in here. Top of the day to everybody in the room. And listen to the discussion. Of course, we have jumped to multiple places, so I want to hit two places real quick. One is I don't believe the discussion that was just had is talking about two sides in a sense, because our
Mm-mm.
sister
You're right.
Tashandra is speaking. If I'm hearing her correctly, she continues to speak about the pathologies that plague our community, the drug use and the
Right.
criminality, the prison, and all those things that can be things that keep people and cause people to be in poverty. But that is being said, and then our brother Darvell up top is speaking to the institutional systemic issues that causes poverty, like underemployment, lack of uh, resources, the ability to get those resources. We had plenty of people who had homes but were given subprime loans, interest-free loans, and or interest-only loans and things of that nature that thrusted them right back into poverty in the denial of loans when they qualify. As he was talking about the businesses that go out of business because they just can't get the backing that other people are getting. Not that they don't qualify for them, it's just that they don't have the banks, or the banks will not give them that. So these two things, and both of these things can be true. And the problem, of course, is that on one end, when you have one group of us speaking to one, the other group that focuses on the other takes it as if that part of it is being ignored. But these two things can be true, and we are complex people. We can deal with all these problems uh, all at once. So, and to speak to Ketanji, one thing we must understand as we go back to a discussion 20, 30 minutes ago when we were talking about the qualifications, whether or not she's qualified to be on the court. Everyone in this room is qualified to be on the Supreme Court. Why? Because there are no qualifications to be on the Supreme Court. It don't matter. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a judge. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to be of a certain age. There's no qualifications to be on the Supreme Court. It's the president nominates you to be on the Supreme Court. You will be on the court if the Senate approves you. We've seen it. And the only thing that have stopped the people whom we deem unqualified based on our ideas of what a judge should be, look like, and have as part of their resume is because the senators go about and they deny that. The most recent person who was nominated and denied access was Harriet Myers. If y'all remember when George Bush nominated her, this woman had no understanding of the law, had never been to law school or anything. She was just in the cabal. And so he nominated her, and senators on both sides shot that down. So we must understand that there's no qualification. So when you speak about qualifications for the court, you're simply thinking of things that you and other people have in their head as to what a judge should look like and be able to do based on the decisions that they have to make, and not anything that's written in the Constitution or in the job description of a Supreme Court justice. Lastly, when we talk about Ketanji, we saw the shirking of senatorial duties by both the Democrats and the Republicans, in the sense that the Republicans focus primarily on her light sentencing to would be or supposed or convicted child pornographers, and how she gave them less months than what the court or what the prosecution advised or what the guidelines advise. That seems to be their only game. And of course, they focused on CRT, but she won't be doing anything along those lines, right? And the other, what they didn't focus on was her record. And she said it, as others have said continuously, that she had litigated over 500 cases. How did she litigate those cases? What were those cases? How did she sentence? How did she handle class action lawsuits that came before her? And these are the things where both the Democrats and the Republicans fail, because they fail to inform us of what they found in her record, because we're not going to do the work and go out there and pull all of her dockets and everything and read through. But to give you one example of something that we do know for sure that she did is the class action lawsuit by Black workers that work for Lockheed Martin. The workers the Black workers that work for Lockheed Martin were suing Lockheed Martin for discrimination and all types of other things. And Lockheed Martin actually settled with them, and they offered a few $1 million, some reform, and all this other type shit. And they went to Ketanji to get her stamp of approval on this. She denied it, saying that there was no factual basis for this case to be settled. Mind you, Lockheed Martin had agreed, and their lawyers, and these Lockheed Martin is the biggest contracting government company there is. They with billions of dollars. So you know they had the best of lawyers. And then these black folks with their class action lawsuit had their lawyers. And if they got Lockheed Martin to settle with the lawyering power that they had, you know that they had to have something there. But she denied their claim. Then she took so long to publish her decision and write her decision that they didn't have they ran out of time to appeal her decision, and she denied them discovery access to Lockheed Martin's file. All of this is publicly available for any of you who want to go research it. And again, this is why I say that the senators on both sides skirted their duties in informing us of decisions like this, and who knows what other decisions are in her repertoire. And of course, this is just one, right? I don't want to sully sister's character or anything.
It's fair to do that, Fahim, because I was going to say, out of the 25 cases that she had that was like race-based on discrimination and all of that, the 3 that she, reviewed, that Lockheed one was one of like the biggest ones. And so I'm glad you brought that up. So if you want to keep on going, I do want to talk on that a little bit too after you.
Right. All I was saying though is that without us having a full gamut, because again, I've been following Supreme Court nominations going back into the 90s. And most times I've read several articles, like the one sister that Claiborne and Graham wanted to get on the court. Oh, they went back and I read so many articles about bad and poor decisions she made. It was ridiculous. And it made sense that she would get nominated. But I can say the same was not done for Ketanji. These same groups that went out and found everything wrong with that sister could not find anything, did not find anything, or refused to publish what they found as it related to Ketanji. So she's going on to the court. There's nothing we can do or the Congress can do to stop it. They got the votes. They got the president. It's going to happen. But we are still going in with somewhat of a blindfold as to what her judicial philosophy is, because that's the one thing she says she don't have, because there's no way in which she judged that we can say, okay, we know how she thinks like this. But that's all I wanted to say, is that she is going to get on the court. Nothing we can do about it, but we're going in with one eye covered, because we don't know how she's going to rule going forward, except that her decisions are going to be lengthy and, like a book when she issued them.
No, yeah. And to that point, with you bringing up the Lockheed case, that was actually Ross versus Lockheed, I believe. And I was reading up on that as well, because we know a federal black judge, the first federal black judge of Alabama, if first is mean anything, he wrote a letter in opposition, just opposing her nomination to the White House. And it was on the grounds of what happened in that case and kind of her views on the situation. But I mean, after reviewing the situation, I would say I did have a certain viewpoint where I said that, she denied these claimants the ability to get the actual settlements or, compensation plans from Lockheed Martin on the grounds that it would be cheating every individual of the single settlement that they may have. I mean, I guess the single case that they may have with Lockheed, and they could get substantially more as it relates to, compensation for what they went through. And ultimately, I do want to read some of what was read. And so it says, in a class action lawsuit presented to Brown Jackson in 2017, Brown Jackson refused to certify 5,000 plus Black employees at Lockheed Martin. The claim, brought originally by 2 Black employees, suggested racial discrimination in the performance appraisal process at Lockheed. By denying the recognition of these Black employees as a class, Brown Jackson prevented the discovery process from possibly identifying the exact detailed pattern of the prohibited race discrimination, which Brown Jackson said she could not detect beyond the anecdotal level. And so, based on the experiences of the 2 folks that had actually submitted their case, I actually pulled up the case text, which lays out the case. But in the memorandum opinion, it says, according to Ross and Josie's, Lockheed's annual employee performance review process is flawed in both design and implementation. Because African American, non-represented salary employees below the level of vice president have received lower overall ratings on their annual performance reviews as compared to similarly situated white employees, and the lower ratings have in turn resulted in lower salaries, lower raises, lower bonuses, lower long-term incentive awards, fewer promotions, and lower retention rate for African Americans at Lockheed. Plaintiffs' three-count complaint claims that Lockheed's performance review process has been systematically injurious in a manner that amounts to both intentional race discrimination. And so, really you had these like three claimants who were going to go through with a case with Lockheed. And I had another article that came up, but it basically stated how Ketanji Jackson, she opposed the settlement that Lockheed came up with, which was $22 million for the 5,500 Black employees, as well as solutions as to how to broach the performance evaluation system so that it is fair for Black employees. And so she opposed it on the grounds that, these three employees would be making the decisions for all employees. And also within that settlement, there was a clause that stated that all other Black employees at Lockheed Martin, upon this compensation being received, they will renounce all other discrimination claims that they had at Lockheed. And so after reading that, I was like, I guess that is real, really problematic if we're looking at it. But at the same time, I would say towards this case, she also, when she blocked the discovery from occurring, like it read in this little passage I had read earlier, when she blocked that discovery from occurring, she pretty much prevented them from being able to expose the truth of the actual discrimination. And the actual, the real reality about racism today is that shit is subtle. And so we're not dealing with nobody who's gonna walk up on us and call us niggas to their face. We're dealing with somebody in HR who might pay us less because I don't know what the fuck the qualification is. We just know that the white person got paid more and you got paid less. And that's the type of things we're dealing with. We're dealing with nepotism. We're dealing with all type of things. And I feel like when I judge that Lockheed case based on those facts, I would say that maybe she didn't make the wrong call in opposing the case. But then at the same time, those 5,500 workers, if they were all, my opinion is, if they were all in agreement to settle for the 22 million, and if they all were in agreement to accept the performance evaluation solutions that were going to come, I feel like she
Why stand in the way of that?
Yeah, I feel like she may have, just disregarded their wishes at their, at their expense. So that could have been money they got and all of these other things. So that's what
right. One thing is she can't say, and this is my last point, she can't say, and I agree with you that her decision probably was right to deny the claim, but then you can't say I'm denying this claim because you all deserve more, but then deny them the means to get the information they need to get more. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Who was that who said they had more?
That was Terry.
Okay, go ahead, Terry. It's on you anyway.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so when you're a part of a class action lawsuit, like you don't get to decide how much the case settles for. Like it just does not happen. You just take what you get, whatever it may be. And then you forfeit your rights. Like say the case settled for, $1 million. Okay, so it settled for around $2 million. I'm not exactly sure, but you have the lawyer's cut that's taken out of that, and then 5,500 employees are going to be sharing in whatever's left.
It was 22 million divided by 5,500. That was about like 4,000. So
there's
4,000 per person.
There's a portion that's taken out of that for the lawyer's fees, okay, and like whatever other expenses that come with the litigation, and then the 5,500 employees have to divvy, whatever's left up. So it may have been adequate, it may not have been adequate. But I think that the real issue was that the commonality aspect that needed to be met in that case was not met. So for you to have a class action lawsuit, right? For the most part, everyone who's involved in a lawsuit, they have to have the same sort of claim for the most part, right? And the thing is, the claims were too they were too different in nature for it to really be a class action lawsuit. So that aspect of the lawsuit was not met. So that's why it couldn't really classify as a class action lawsuit. So that's why that case was not able to proceed forward.
Yeah, and I read that as
well.
But
why deny the discovery?
Hold on. I was going to say I read that as well, and that's a great point. because the grounds was the first 2 or 3 people who were suing, it was based on the performance evaluation. And so if everybody else had a different discrimination case from the time where somebody called them a nigger in the workplace or hung up a noose on their computer, that would be an entirely separate claim. And so there is no commonality in that. I guess I could see the legalese there. So yeah. But what was you going to say, Fahim? You was going to say why deny the discovery. I agree. Why deny the discovery? Because it would expose the level of what, the separate claims would have had to be. But
is that, did it say she denied the discovery in that article? Is that what
they
yes.
said? Yeah, it did. She did.
After she denied the class action lawsuit, they then said, okay, can we get discovery? And she said no to that as well. And then it took forever to issue her opinion.
That was a part of the process. So like before she even judged, they had came to an agreement on that 22 million as a settlement, but then she blocked it. And then, the next steps was for that discovery. And like Fahim said, that was blocked as well. And then I think like the third count was I don't know what I was reading, but it was like something where it was like Section F or some shit, out of the federal civil rights, suits and whatnot. But to your point, no commonality and those things was what
it makes sense logically, because if she's already denying that it's a class action lawsuit, it doesn't really make sense to go forward with the discovery because it's already not going to be a class action lawsuit. So it's like you're making these people incur expenses for really no reason. So, it might not be something that you see is favorable or fair, but logically it makes sense because they're not going forward with the lawsuit anyway. They're not going to go forward with the class action lawsuit. So it doesn't really make sense to do the discovery. The discovery should happen first, then the settlement.
Yeah, but Lockheed is a gargantuan company. They're just not going to give up information simply by those lawyers for the representing those employees requesting it. And I definitely get what you're saying in the sense that if they didn't meet that burden in the beginning, why allow them to now? But at the same time, she was basing that on the information of 3 employees and the differences that they had in their claims. And if we allow that to expand out to those 5,500, surely we're going to find some commonality amongst maybe a good 1,000 of them and how Lockheed had went about with their discrimination, their performance reviews, and so on.
And I understand that, but that's not how class action lawsuits work. Everyone has to have the same claim. Like, for example, let's say you're working for a company and for a number, like every year, there's a federal law where you're supposed to get a raise. 3 years go by, you don't get a raise. At that point, everyone would have the same claim because they were denied the raise that they were legally supposed to get. That's commonality. So there was no commonality in that case. And I understand, it may not seem fair, but it's like when you really examine the law, she didn't do anything wrong.
Right. So you're saying since she told them go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Because if 3 people come with 3 separate claims, it's not a class action lawsuit. It's just not. They would have to have the exact same claim for it to be a class action lawsuit, at least at the onset.
Yeah, but see, I feel like it was kind of like almost sabotaged in the sense that if it was based initially on the grounds of the performance evaluations, that would have been a class action lawsuit because it would have dealt with not just those 3 Black people. It would have been like, how are all Black people evaluated when compared to their white peers? And, even in a similar situation to like my industry, there's white managers who can select special key contributors to a corporation. And these people get significantly higher bonuses, recognition, X, Y, and Z, and they can use that to propel themselves. That's the argument that those 3 first claimants had. I think Ross and whoever the other person was, I can't remember their name right now. But with that being the case, that was a solid case. Like let's figure out how these white corporations are evaluating people on the grounds of their performance compared on white and Black, and if there's disparities, how can they explain that? And if they can't, that would have applied to the whole group of Black people, and they would have benefited from that compensation. But if the court would have been specific on that rather than trying to take the other arguments into account, then I felt like she could have went forward.
Yeah, sounds like they're saying that they should have.
Thanks for rocking with us here on the live stream.
People involved.
We're gonna keep it going for a little
that
longer
would have
here.
then allowed for the case to go forward, but without that discovery, none of that's going to happen.
Yeah, and you know why that's problematic? I feel like the court.
People got
I'll say
together who
this.
had the same injuries, it would have worked.
I'll say this, and then I won't stay it. I want you to go ahead and hop in. But I'll say that this shows you how the law works backwards. So when they participate in RICO cases and all of these things, they find the smallest things to then expand the scope to capture the people they need to capture and to gain what they need to gain. But when it comes to these civil suits, the smallest things can't be used to broaden the scope and capture everything, and that's the disadvantage of us as citizens. But that's the one thing I did want to point out.
Did Kennedy speak? Did Omar speak?
Oh, my bad. Kennedy, you wanted to go and jump in?
Hey, yeah, man. Peace to the room. It seems like I'm listening to a highly technical conversation about law, and I haven't been to law school, and I haven't been. I'm not like an attorney or anything like that, and so I don't want to disrupt the conversation at this
No, hey,
point.
bro. Hey, Kennedy, we not either. So go ahead. Just give drop what you got. It might be gems.
Well, I mean, I think we really need to pay attention to misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. I think we just need to be hyper focused on what's legitimately true about the society we live in. We can't move forward unless we do this. Like there's been so many things pushed in front of us, even what we consider to be legalistic terminology that we just don't quite get. And so that's pretty much the basis of my comment is that we just need to be more informed, even when it comes to like what we consider to be money. I heard Cassandra, and I agree, with what she was saying. She's not coming from a place of ill intent, and so what she's saying is largely true as far as what we need to be doing. However, like the brother said, it's impossible. It won't be impossible, but it's very. So it's a large order at this particular point in time when there's millions and millions of Americans who are melanated that can't quite get a grasp of how the system works. And so, they do create businesses and 80% of the businesses do fail. But why? And like when you question like how do these guys succeed? So how is it that they can formulate a business and then they all of a sudden they understand that, oh wait, I have to partner with someone else at this point. I can't do this alone. And it's not about me having a particular product that I'm selling. It's about me actually, organizing some type of unified effort to get equity in the system. And I don't think we get that yet. Like we're still talking about buying black. And I think that that's largely a big problem as well. When we're not adding to the equity of the whole, we're just looking at individuals who then, take their little bit of currency and they take it and they squander it on some other, illegitimate means of gain. And this is the problem when we're not moving the needle forward, and it's a big problem. But yeah, man, these other people, like what the title of the room is about Ketanji and Kamala, I think they know letters and law, and I think that's what's important in this environment to realize what's being said and what's in front of us, the system. And so whatever they ascribe to, like my last name is Kennedy, that's my surname, and so what my family says is that's law. We hold that as law. And so apparently they have a family that they agree with and they're holding what they stand on as law. And so we can't disagree with what they're doing. We can only, and why fight it? You can't fight anything in law. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, you go in there fighting and then you get shut down, right? So what you have to do is propose a system that is going to largely counteract whatever or counter refute or, is going to rebut whatever that they just put in place, and you just have to devise a system that's going to do that effectively. And that's what we haven't come up with. We're still trying to fight a system that we can't even fight as ordinary citizens. Many people, the civil rights never ever worked because of ordinary citizenry. And so, and that was largely the reason for the Civil Rights Act, was where we wanted to give these ordinary citizens some type of rights. How can you give me anything as far as a right is concerned. But my inalienable right is to practice my freedom of faith in a higher power. And our communities haven't quite got there yet. We got these churches, but we haven't quite gotten the fact that they created a system because they had the ability and they understood the power or authority that they were standing in. That's it. Like what is standing in law, you know? And so, like, man, it's like, man, when we see the system that has been developed in front of our eyes and we're consistently trying to fight it, like that's not working. So now it's time to look at some solutions that's above this system and really put it into play. Like unity is above this system. I mean, you can't, I mean, how much unity is there in commerce? I mean, in commerce, you have to apply trust, which implies risk. So there's no unity in commerce. So we got to get out of the thinking. It's the thinking. It's the freaking mindset that we got. Like we all think that we're bound and we're not bound. And so I'll end it there.
Okay. Omar, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. I just wanted to, just to reiterate the point that, Ketanji Jackson, she's in a position. It's an old saying. What they say: too much is given, much is required, right? And like I said, she's in a position there where she's going to change and upheld laws, right, for a generation, a lifetime, right? She's probably going to be more influential than maybe a president of the United States, but like I said, we have to support her on that level, right? She's not Clarence Thomas, right? From a voting, from her history of repealing different, like I said, prison sentences and stuff like that. So on that level, we have to do what we have to do as a black people on our end, right? But we need judges. Let's be honest. We need judges. We need laws of the land that can benefit black people, right? Now, she can't change everything overnight, but I think to a certain degree, she is black girl magic, man. She at her level, she has reached the pinnacle of her career, of her success, and it's black excellence. And I do think that we have to give her roses on that level. What she do after she gets in, we can critique, have our differences and all that stuff. But I think we should, as a black collective, this is a win. I don't see this as a loss. It is a win. Now we have to do our part, whatever industry we're in, whatever field or whatever part of the country we're in. We have to do our part as individuals. But I think Ketanji, and I'm not talking about Kamala, I'm thinking about Ketanji. She is black girl magic on that level, and I just land there.
Okay. My esteemed panelists, moderators. We have anything to say? I mean, I'll let you guys go on the line.
Sorry, I was muted. That's my bad. But I was gonna say, so the Black News Channel was actually founded by a former Republican congressman named J.C. Williams, I believe. Sadiq Khan, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars and I believe Manchester United soccer team, but that might be the owner for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. Either way, he was investing money in it, and it ultimately failed. And I think this is a lot. This loops into what we're talking about. What benefit? Same news, same perspective, same information as CNN and MSNBC. I don't want to go watch black news to give me the white news perspective. I want the black news to give me the black perspective or the African American or the freedman perspective. And so if you're in a situation where I have you here and you're not allowed to tell me the stories that are relevant to my community in a way that's true and honest and sincere, and that you're not challenging power in a way that's beneficial for our group, why do I need you here to exist? And so the market showed that you wasn't necessary, right? The market showed that people who are in their own small spaces challenging the current narrative, right, or the public narrative or the mainstream narrative, like a Kwame Brown, who is by himself, who has a large fan base, or a Kevin Samuels. And I'm not talking about what their content is. I'm talking about what their reach is through their content. You see that those people are able to thrive and survive. And here you got a black news channel that's being upheld by a former member of Congress, black member of Congress, and an Indian or Sri Lankan billionaire who's funded them to the tune of $50 million a year, saying, look, man, this is an endeavor that's not worth my time. And so how this loops back into what we're talking about. This is the problem we face. And Cornel West talked about this when Obama was running in 2008. He said, yeah, I'm gonna vote for him, I'm gonna support him. But when he gets into office, I'm gonna start beating him over the head. And it's too late. How many Somalians was bombed? Libya, how many African people are slaves in Libya now because Obama, Hillary Clinton destroyed that country? And I'm talking about slaves like slaves. I'm not using a euphemism. I'm talking about getting beaten, sold at open markets, right? Look at Yemen right now as a result.
Uh-oh.
And in the country, in the black community.
Sorry about that.
South America, where Hillary Clinton as a Secretary of State in the I believe she murdered an activist or a government official in Honduras in 2009. Right? So when we sit here and say we're going to let this evil person get in, because we all smart enough to know either at best, these individuals can't change anything. At best, we can all agree that, right? At best, they're not going to be able to change anything for the better for us. So, that's rhetorical. At best. So we can all say that. We're going to give you a chance to do what the tendency is, with our support at least, because we don't, like I think Tashandra said it, we don't control it. So we can't say, well, if we don't want her in here, she ain't going to get in, because I didn't put her up. So nobody took nobody about her one way or the other. So it is out of our hands, and I believe Fahim said it too. It's out of our hands at this point. But what we can do in order to show that we have some sense, and we can say, look, not in my name. Not in my name will I allow you to put this woman up who's going to do immeasurable damage and harm to our community as a continuation of the system of white dominance globally and here and domestically, in order so that I say we got somebody black doing it now. Because like I joked about on the show one time, what the liberal idea is not justice. It's not true. It's equality and diversification of oppression or oppressive forces. And what I mean by that is you don't want no slavery. You want a white slave owner, you want a black slave owner, or a trans slave owner, right? You don't want to have a more humane justice system. You just want a black female judge. That's all it is. We don't want to have a more fair and just legal system. We just want to make sure that the judge is black so that she can bang that gavel and beat somebody over the head with some time like everybody else. That's what we're asking for. We want to have the opportunity to have a seat at the table instead of turning the table on its end and saying, we don't want this meal. You're not about to feed us this bullshit. You're not about to have us eating this bullshit. That's what the problem is. That's too much of what, as members of the black community, that's what we do. We accept the bullshit they give us. We gotta get a black female on the Supreme Court. When we didn't have a black man, Clarence Thomas, for 30 years, and he ain't did shit. What makes her any different? And then we can say, well, maybe because I ain't no lawyer, so I think it was Terry's the lawyer, right? She's a lawyer, and so she coming with this information. And it's on point because she's a lawyer, so I can't dispute none of what she's saying. But I can say this as a person with an associate's degree. What we got to look at is how many of those people now, because she said that this ain't a class action lawsuit and it would deny those who have legitimate claims from being justly compensated, how many of them people is justly compensated yet? Because sometimes justice got to be taken as you can find it. And sometimes you got to fight to get all your justice. And now for justice for black people from the U.S. government and from the system at large, I'm willing to fight to my last breath. But if somebody's giving me 10,000 when I should be giving 40,000 and maybe I'm getting $1 million, I'm going to take the 10 because I ain't got nothing right now. And so this is the situation. We have to find ways to legalese our way to say she did the right thing for all of them because she it wasn't a class action and she whatever the case. What we know now is I ain't heard about none of them folks getting justice at this point at all. And like has been said ad nauseum, Lockheed ain't just saying, all right, we're going to give you $22 million. If anything, it should have probably been 50. If that's the case, if they willing to give you 22, they should have been giving you 50 or 100. So we know the levels of which they acknowledge that they have committed wrongs within their company or organization. And so we have this judge here saying, no, I'm going to look out for the other people. What kind of mess is that? And then, like I say, when we get down to asking about racism in the judicial system, you don't see it. But when Marsha Blackburn, hillbilly redneck ass, asks you what a woman is, I'm not qualified. I'm not a biologist. The fuck do that mean? You willing to give concessions to this group of people, which I'm not against. I'm just drawing a parallel between the way that people will fight for everybody else but our community. And I'm supposed to be happy at the diversification of oppression. I can't do it. I don't want to see it at this table. I want a new table.
Hey, conspiracy. One question. Would you rather have Ketanji Jackson, right, or the Trump appointees to the Supreme Court? Who would you rather have, brother?
Which one is doing more for my community?
I know. I'm asking you a question. Which one?
I'm asking you a question. I just need context.
Based on what we know, right, on the information we have, what would you rather have for the Black community? I'm talking about the African American, the Black American, right? What would you rather have? Trump appointees to the Supreme Court or Ketanji Jackson, brother?
Ain't that Biden versus Trump again?
I just need to know which one is going to do more for my community. That's all I'm asking. Whichever one is doing more for, because Obama was putting Merrick Garland up, and he's a very conservative judge. So I'm just asking, which one is doing more for my community? If it's a wash, that's my answer.
Okay,
you can tell me one is doing more for my community besides optics.
I think it's clear
I'll give you a better answer. But if it's just optics,
going to do more for your community. I think that's clear. That's clear at this point. Like there's no. I think that the nominee that Trump actually put forward is going to do more for your community if your community is trying to wake up. And that's
how I'm saying y'all know the Supreme Court justice that Trump put up. Y'all know about them?
Brother said just now. Did he say how?
Yeah, but I'm saying, listen, the Supreme Court justices that Trump put up, you know, they're anti-Black too. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade, right? So I'm not trying to
put in was anti-Black. Is that what you said, brother?
Anti-Black as hell. Anti-Black as hell. Yeah. But I'm not trying to get I'm not trying to get at that. But the point I'm trying to say is we have to give the sister a shot, right? Until she gets in, then we can critique.
I'm saying you don't.
That's that Obama.
I'm saying you don't have to do that. Just like this, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling, she said it was dumb. She wouldn't put him in jail for it, but it was dumb. Now, if we was talking about the Holocaust or something with Jews, I bet, or women, you'd have something to say, but she's a liberal hero. White women made her notorious RBG. They didn't make her larger than life. And she didn't give a damn about Black people. Not an ounce.
Cap, we got Cap. That's a whole nother issue. Some Blacks didn't.
But what I'm not talking about what he ultimately stood for. I'm talking about his action. You can't tell me the man is dumb for doing what he's doing. That's his American right to free speech. If you want to kneel for Marshawn Lynch, they never stood for the national anthem. He sat on the bench his whole career, and ain't nobody never said nothing about it.
Yeah, but that's
so what I'm saying is, if this woman decides to say it's stupid for him to exercise his First Amendment right, but if I was to say something about women or Jews, she'd be rolling in her grave, and that's a Clinton appointee, if I'm not mistaken. This Democrat Republican Biden is one of the most conservative, racist, white supremacist, anti-Black people we ever had in office, ever. And I'm not counting the people who own slaves because they're in a whole different trajectory. But Biden is one of the.
I hear you, conspiracy, right? I hear you and everything, brother. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is not wrong, right? But I mean, so are we talking about? Because I want to be clear here, because I'm hearing a bunch of narratives and rhetoric that I'm trying to be clear. So, are we talking about Blacks within the system? Is this what we're talking about, or are we talking about true freedom? I'm just not sure yet. Which one are we talking about here?
Yeah, because I think conspiracy needs to start its own country if that's the case. You know what I mean? Because we in America, brother. So we gotta,
brother, we are in America, and what that means is if you're willing to accept whatever they give you, eat it. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not. And I'm not going to teach my children to do it, and I'm not going to ask anybody else. I'm not going to advocate for nobody else to do it. But by all means, brother, you do what you want to do. We are in America.
Here's the thing. So if you look at globally the statistics, 80% of the GDP comes from family-oriented business. That's what it comes from. It comes from families that are governing themselves, and they're putting their manufactured product into the marketplace, which is life, right? And so when we're looking at this, what in the world are we doing with our families here? And are we talking about a system that has never worked? What are we talking about here? This is what I'm trying to be clear of. Because we can argue until we're blue in the face. Like you can argue that Harriet Tubman created a freaking underground railroad and freed some slaves. Or are we going to argue the fact that we're now still trying to free people of a system that has incarcerated the mind and body?
You went into the matrix, bro. Kennedy, you're in the matrix.
Ooh, we're gonna have to start wrapping it up, E.
Yeah. Hey. So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I mean, it's been a good build. I was gonna say, Ketanji and Kamala, Black Girl Magic or Black Girl Tragic. I felt like everybody expressed their views correctly. At least they gave us what they believed. You know what I'm saying? I did the same thing. So I would say it was a great build. Definitely look forward to speaking with you guys again on a different topic. And so with that, peace.
Peace.
I got a question, man. What are you guys doing at this point? So I'm a part of an international community, and we help serve the underserved with financial literacy, not like how the conventional way, where people are teaching credit and saying, get a business and all those things. So we teach it from the social elite perspective, where we have to combine, our resources at this point. I want to know, as far as in this particular room, there's only a couple people here, and I enjoy speaking to when there's very few people because it leaves less room for the ego. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, what are we doing as far as solutions? We can.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Kennedy. We're gonna let Darvell and Conspiracy slam dunk that for you.
Yeah, so this is a good time to do two different things. One, to speak to your point, all four of us who come together to make the Freedmen's Collective, which is a YouTube show, we decided to endeavor off and do this hybrid YouTube and Clubhouse show today on this Saturday. And we're going to be doing it again. It looked like it went really well. People really well received it. However, not only do we run this show, but really we're foundationally anchored in the movement, the reparations movement. And specifically, we run an organization in Michigan known as the Freedmen's Agenda League of Michigan. The focus there is very, very, very much anchored in education. Because the beginning and end of this, the beginning of the end of the issues we're facing starts with people understanding what their options are and understanding truly what's happening and how we get out of where we are, right? Even if you believe that, the solution is different than what we say it is, someone has to sit down and start to offer the options and explain why they work and why the current status quo doesn't work, because there's too many people who are comfortable with the status quo. So that's what we do. That's at least what I do. I champion production of this show, as well as supporting the Freedmen Agenda League and everything we do in Michigan and the Detroit area. We're focusing really hard on the local reparations movement and also supporting the understanding and knowledge around the federal push. And we also have discussions to help people understand what are the options politically, and then what can we do socially and economically to kind of stave off the arrows, if you will, right now. Right. So there's a lot of things that we do in that space. But also personally, I also run the Black Young Professionals in Metro Detroit, which is an organization focused on more what Tassandra said earlier, which is trying to do the best we can with what we have today. You know, the spending, the things that we have in order to create the wealth intergenerationally so that we can at least hold the water the best we can right now. But the end game at the end of the day is to close the racial wealth gap if we're in this country, because if we don't have equitable amount of wealth in this country, we will never be able to compete. Our business will still fail. And things like this that we're having discussions over will continue to be an issue. So that's at least what I can speak to. And that's what this show was about today. So I hand over to Conspiracy Brother, and then I'll close this out if Gerard didn't have anything.
Hey, yeah. So, I mean, you basically heard the gist of what we talked about as it pertains to the Freedmen Agenda League of Michigan. And I primarily work in the space of political and community engagement. So if there are any contacting your politicians, I try to organize any kind of letterheads, any kind of education as it pertains to policies and bills, your members of Congress, and then trying to get our organization is fairly new, so trying to get members involved, engaging with the community to try to get people involved and up and registered so that we can kind of have a base of people who we can pull from and draw from to get our agendas passed as it pertains to freedmen in Michigan and working with freedmen around the country.
Can I break in really fast?
Yeah,
Darvell,
if you make it real short, brother, go ahead. Go ahead.
I see you. You started this at 1:30 Eastern time. Do you do more rooms and more talks like this? Because I really hate that I missed this talk.
Hey, the room,
Yes.
I think the replays is on too, so you'll be able to catch it if you follow Darvell, me, or anybody else on the stage, because they should have a recording on their page.
But yeah, to that point, we are, I think Ernest already said we are planning to do another one of these, different topics, of course, but it seemed to have gone well.
And just lastly, one question I just wanted to know: is it Black Girl Magic or is it Black Girl Tragic?
Well, in my estimation, it's Black Girl Tragic.
Wait,
that's how
I'm a second.
So hold on. So Kamala,
Black Girl Magic.
So Kamala was most definitely Black Girl Tragic. Now Ketanji, I'm just saying, the Fraternal Order of Police backing her. You got Biden backing her. You got motherfucking all of these weird things. Her being afraid to speak on sexuality. You know, at the same time, breaking up a lawsuit case on the grounds that there's other people who, you know, have specific cases, and she ain't gonna do a lump program. You know how I see that in the eyes of like being a reparationist, I find that, you know, kind of threatening. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that position could easily disrupt a reparations claim if somebody like, well, were your family lynched? And if so, then you can't get reparations for that. Like, that ain't what the claim about if it could be proven that the government has been complicit in our destruction. And so, you know, with that being said, I say Ketanji has the potential to be Black Girl Tragic. But what matter of fact, with the white husband, I'll go ahead and say Black Girl Tragic until she can go ahead and show me that she on the team.
Oh, thank you, man. Y'all just gained y'all both of y'all just gained to following me. But yeah, it's worse than we even know, man. And we gonna clap for it, but boy, they don't even know what they just did. But it's gonna be bad.
Alan, you have anything you want to end with since you're up here on the stage? And then we can just close it out.
Yeah, man, it's Black Girl Magic all the way. And again, like I said earlier, it's a thing of classism. And lastly, I just don't think that reparations or the claim or fight for reparations should seek to destroy Black success in this country or to downplay it. Not all of us are in such a horrible, bad condition in this country. And I think that you don't need to prompt up how bad some of us are doing to claim that we need reparations.
Okay. Well, before Darvell, before you go, I just want to just to answer to that. When you have Bob Johnson, I would say he was one of the most successful black entrepreneurs in our country, he sees a need for reparations. When we have Byron Allen, another successful Detroiter, who's done, above and beyond in commerce and in the entertainment industry, and you seeing he's taken to court, because he was blackballed by, the major cable companies, Comcast, AT&T, Universal, and so on and so forth. This is beyond just, those of us who are at the margins. This impacts the whole group. When you have a system to where the Bureau of Labor Statistics states that a white high school graduate has more wealth than a college black graduate. That's systematic. That's not choices. That's not decisions on an individual level. That's a systematic issue, and that's where we feel reparations will set the stage straight, and we don't have it income based for those who will receive it. It's lineage based, because the impacts of this racist system has impacted all class groups within the black community.
Right.
There's
Can I add this last point real quick, man, before you guys go? I just want to say that everything black that we've started or tried to do fails because we as black people, we don't fully support it. And this is a prime example is right here, right now. We can't support this sister because we fear that because she's successful, then it must be her working with the white man. So therefore, we're not going to support her. And it's the same problem in the community. If we try to open up a black business in the black community, our folks are not supporting each other, man. And it has nothing to do with reparations, it has nothing to do with white people. It's a matter amongst our own community that we need to fix and change.
Well,
let me just say.
Go ahead.
I knew this pulling up.
So let's just say hypothetically, let's say Angela Davis was nominated. I'd be 100% supportive of her nomination. Now, even though she's done things that she's gotten older that I disagree with, I would 100% support her nomination.
No, you wouldn't.
Nina Simone, Maya Angelou, I just 100% supported the nomination.
You wouldn't support these sisters, man, because they wouldn't be nominated, bro. And
that's my point, brother. That's my point. The kind of people that deserve to be on the Supreme Court aren't being nominated. So I'm not going to just say, hey, I go to a restaurant and say, you could just bring me whatever you feel like cooking.
So are you saying that we're not smart enough?
And I'm going to eat it. That's not going to happen.
So are you saying that we're not smart enough to infiltrate and learn from Angela Davis and Nina Simone's? Listen, how we need to infiltrate the system to help our people out is going to be different than how it was in the 60s and 70s. Our brothers and sisters were outspoken activists, and we've seen what happened to them. So
infiltrate.
Why can't we say, yeah, right?
Obama infiltrated, didn't he?
Brother, that's a hell of infiltration. You getting the Fraternal Order of Police to endorse you. That's a hell of infiltration.
She needed war for that one, bro.
You having white babies. That's infiltration, brother. You getting infiltrated, all right.
All right, can I speak again? So listen, man, I live in a black community. I live in PG County, Maryland. We have no problem with the police out here, my brother. No problem. In fact, we call them when we need to call them, and they protect our community. We need to start looking at these anecdotal experiences, bro, and
tell Tashonda that.
All right, the bottom line is that in order to make real change in this country, we have to infiltrate the system and just get shit done. We have to be educated. We have to be fucking excellent, and that's how it works in this country. As simple as that.
Brother, I got a question for you, Alan. I got a question for you, Alan. If you indulge me,
I'm here.
Do you have that Malcolm X as your icon? Is that a joke? Is that like irony? Because
joke,
he wouldn't do none of that. He wouldn't say none of that shit, bro. Malcolm X didn't say none of that shit that you talking about. Brother. And I know PG County hard because I lived in Alexandria for a year and a half. I know it's rough over there, bro. I know it's rough over there.
All right, stay. His response was that Malcolm is dead. So
right, Malcolm is dead, but you know why he died? Because he wasn't taking whatever bullshit they was giving.
Exactly. So hey, hold on, Alan, chill. Hold on. Hey, Eric, these folks to close up, but I know I brought you up because I do want to get your input. Darvell, Gerard, Conspiracy, Eric, you know, he definitely wanted the reparations. So I like for him to weigh in on the conversation.
Yeah, like I came in a bit too late because I'm really horrified by what I'm hearing coming out of another black man's mouth regarding reparations. But let me make something clear. This reparations conversation and the reparations claim is data based. It's not aspirational. It's not emotional. It's data based. And you frame this conversation in terms of a group. I guarantee you, the people that you hear speaking the way that this brother speak, give them next week and let the white man kick their ass and fire them unjustly. They'll become black and start trying to, you know, they'll understand. Then it takes a Negro wake up call for some black people, and that's just the reality. This is a group discussion. This is a group fight. This ain't about, you know, of course, duplicating one or two individuals. You are people that are exceptional are an exception for a reason. What's the exception for us is the norm for white people, and the data bears that out. The data bears that out. So I just encourage anybody that don't really know what the conversation is about and hadn't read From Here to Equality and don't know the data. This is a data supported and a data driven cause. So I'll say that, and I respect the fact that I know y'all are about to go. So I'll land my mic there.
That was outstanding. That was outstanding. Thank you for closing us out with that, Eric. Listen, we done had a powerful conversation here. We done had some really good talking points. And, you know, to anybody, I apologize if I was a little too passionate earlier, but I am strongly here for my people. So I just want that to be known. I don't mean to be hostile, but I think everybody in this room is here for our people. That's why we're putting in the time over 2 hours, 2.5 hours in a single discussion right here, both on YouTube, Facebook, and also Clubhouse and Twitch. We got folks popping in from Twitch. So it's been a great discussion, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. I'm Darvell Powell. You know, you can find me on the Instagram, on the Facebook, and on the YouTube. Ernest, Conspiracy Brother, then Gerard. Y'all want to tell them who y'all are before we shut this off?
Oh, no, I'm good. Y'all will catch me in the Clubhouse streets, and y'all will see more of the rooms coming up. So you know, just stay tuned, and appreciate y'all attending.
I'm Gerard Ibn Lamont, also known as Gerard Page. I'm president of the Freedom Agenda League of Michigan, also known as FAM. Also 1/4 of the Freedmen's Collective. You can catch us up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Both of our organizations, Freedmen's Collective and the Freedmen's Agenda League of Michigan. I'll leave it at that.
Let me say, I was always long-winded, but I appreciate everybody coming in and sharing with us, whether it seemed like it was contentious, whether it seemed like it was hostile. I appreciate different points of view. I appreciate people being passionate about what they believe in. I think as black people, we can all come together to work for the betterment of black people, however we see fit. And so I don't want anybody to think that the way we think it should go is the only way that it can go or the only way that it should go. I work with anybody who want to work, and I appreciate y'all stopping by. And I know my brothers do too.
Thank you, y'all. Catch you soon. Well, everybody, that was an outstanding discussion. Thank you again for tuning in with us for this Saturday, this free Saturday episode of the Freedmen's Collective. Again, please share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And, you know, get in on the next conversation. We're going to do this again. I don't know exactly when, but it'll be very soon. And we're going to get into some more topics, bring in more people and do the thing. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We greatly appreciate you. Please be safe, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.